Hello everybody, very good morning to you once again. Just got 9 o'clock here with the Newsroom team. Kendall, Elvis and myself, Urban Youngster, will be with you until midday today, Elvis. And the bad news is motorists are being told in the south of Johannesburg to avoid certain routes today.
They have to divert, Urban. The roads are being closed in some areas. Ennerdale is again back on strike now. We did get some reports which need to be verified that those protests happening now is not really from the communities, from some other elements. And we're going to try and verify that a little bit later with our reporter.
Muddy waters. So our focus are on those areas south of Johannesburg. Have been under lockdown all week due to service delivery protests, which has now spread further north to the city of Tshwane. So that's our question, our first question.
Our first question that we're asking you today on your screen right now is there a political agenda behind the latest wave of protests? That's the question we pose to you. Let's take a look what you have to say.
What are you guys tweeting us? Peter Mofokeng tweets us and he says, Newsroom, we need to move away from this notion of political agenda when people demand simple basic services. Government must fulfill its promises.
Well, there you go from
Interesting.
Peter. Sitsaba says, no. Leaders have empty promises only.
Anyhow, we're also conducting a poll, and our poll today deals with our theme. Yes, we've got a theme. It's about workplace harassment. Elvis, including bullying, discrimination, and sexual harassment have been identified as rapidly increasing in the workplace.
Not just here in South Africa, around the globe, Urban, and we're asking that question on the poll. Have you, have you been bullied in the workplace?
81 votes in. Slight majority say yes, I've been bullied in the workplace. Interesting. You guys are tweeting us. Sitsaba comes back and says, no, I haven't. A big no, actually. I haven't been bullied in the workplace.
Siafana says, big no.
Talking about bullying awareness.
Yes.
Freddie Whitehorn tweets us, says, I've been affected by employers' madness. That's why I work for myself. Big struggle, but way better than the passive aggression, says Freddie Whitehorn.
Nakasa says, no, I've never been bullied because I respect myself and everyone at the workplace. Very good there.
Interesting take. Onuki Christian says, wow, many times by female colleagues. Quite an experience.
Well, I thought for a moment he says quite an experiment, but experience there. So let us know what's on your mind. Have you been bullied in the workplace? And if so, what was it like and how did you overcome? That's the question we pose to you.
We've got a lot of guests that we've got lined up to talk about this as we continue throughout the 3 hours of the show. But first, let's get the morning's news. There's a lot happening in the south of Joburg.
If you're in the south of Johannesburg, you've been warned as a motorist to avoid certain routes as a result of ongoing service delivery violent protests in the south of Johannesburg. The police minister, Fikile Mbalula, sends a stern warning to criminals who he says are infiltrating protests. You remember we had that question the other day. And the African National Congress's Northern Cape Conference kicks off today amid the urgent midnight cabinet reshuffle by the provincial Cape Premier Sylvia Lucas. Those are your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makhamate what is happening on the sports front.
Okay, I don't know what you were doing last night, but I was watching some 3 very key matches, both here in the PSL as well as out in Europe. Phenomenal stuff.
You can call it key because it's very tight, especially here at home. Kaizer Chiefs might stand a chance too.
No, Elvis, forget about it.
I bet you're going to throw it away.
No, look, you know what? I can tell you what, Gavin Hunt was feeling a little squeaky yesterday, a little sheepish. So it remains to be seen. A few matches to go and we'll find out. All right, now this is what we've got for you in the world of sports today. Bidvest Spurs hold on to their place at the top of the African Premiership even after a 3-1 loss to Free State Stars at Goble Park last night.
Yeah, look, our goal difference is bad, so, you know, we'll see how we go. We'll keep going and try and finish the season.
Real Madrid get the better of their less fortunate neighbours Atletico again as they set up an UEFA Champions League final appointment with the Old Lady of Turin. That's Juventus.
That's what Real Madrid were wanting, and it's come close to half-time. It's put a different complexion on the semi-final.
We're coming here to try and win the thing, and as long as we acknowledge that to ourselves, that creates pressure, and acknowledge to ourselves how we're going to deal with that pressure, then it doesn't become a burden.
With the Rugby World Cup draw done and dusted, All Black coach Steve Hansen is not fazed by the pressure that comes with being the best team in the world. All this and more later on the Sports Bulletin. For now, it's back to Elvis, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. We're staying here in Johannesburg, where the Metropolitan Police have warned motorists to avoid certain routes as a result of the ongoing violent protests in the south of Johannesburg. Protesting residents of Orange Farm and Ennerdale have barricaded the Golden Highway, and they are reportedly pelting motorists on James and provincial roads with stones. The residents of Ennerdale have returned to the streets to demand improved service delivery, particularly housing. They are reported to be pelting vehicles with stones. Eldorado Park, Kliptown, Freedom Park, Lenasia, Ennerdale and Finetown have been gripped by violent service delivery protests. More than 50 people have been arrested thus far. Now, for the latest on what's happening on the ground, we are now joined by our reporter Griselda Lewis, who is monitoring the situation there in Ennerdale, south of Johannesburg. Griselda, very good morning to you. Can you give us the latest as to what is happening there? Paint us a picture.
Well, Elvis, the situation is still very volatile here in Ennerdale following renewed violence this morning, where some residents had barricaded the main roads leading into and out of Ennerdale with stones and burning tyres as well. There's quite a strong police presence that is also here in Ennerdale, and police are certainly having their hands full trying to get the situation out of control. But I think what's interesting that's coming out of this at the moment is that the residents, the leadership of the community is distancing itself from today's protest, saying that it seems that the criminal elements have now crept in to this what they term a legitimate protest over housing, and are essentially saying that those who embarked on the action here today do not represent this community. There have now been threats here as well to burn down one of the schools right here where I am broadcasting from. This is the Mid-Ennerdale Primary School. As you can see here behind me, residents have now formed their own barricade to protect the school following some voice notes that have been sent out to various community members that those who are now protesting plan to burn down the school as well as the local clinic. Police were here just a few moments ago, and the residents are essentially saying that they're going to stand here and ensure that no harm is brought to the school. They've termed the school as one of the best schools in the Ennerdale area, and are saying they cannot allow the violence that has been seen since this morning to escalate into the burning of infrastructure which they so desperately need. Let me chat now to Marge Cass, who is one of the community leaders. She's very instrumental in the starting of this protest over housing. And you're now saying, Marge, that the march itself, or the protest, has now been taken over by criminal elements. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes, because we're not partaking in the strike of today. We're saying, as Ennerdale stakeholders, we are distancing ourselves because it is a criminal element, and we are not going to get involved in burning down infrastructures that we already don't have in Ennerdale. But Ennerdale Primary School is one of the schools that I personally have started from. My children is at a school, and I have a granddaughter that I'm actually looking forward to enrolling at the very same school. So we are not going to entertain criminals to get away with murder and come and burn down a school. Even if it means that we barricade the school ourselves as protesters to safeguard the building of the school as well as the educators in the school.
Who are these people? Have you been able to identify them? Because yes, you've been protesting over housing, and I understand you've decided to halt your protest because there's a pending meeting with the MEC of Human Settlements, Paul Mashatile, tomorrow.
That's correct. We have a meeting tomorrow with the MEC and all the other HODs of infrastructures with regards to the development of Annandale Extension 6 as well as Annandale Extension 2. So I don't know who these people are. They went to start burning down. The strike started in the early morning hours. I was only told about it this morning around about 5:30 when I started receiving calls from the community, because the people thought that it is the Annandale stakeholders that is behind it. And I have released a statement saying that no, we are not behind it. We are engaging tomorrow, and the community at large is aware of the engagement that we as the leaders are having tomorrow with the Human Settlements Office, as well as the HODs of the infrastructures and the Urban Dynamics, who is the consultants, which is busy with the development.
All right, Marge, let me bring in one of the other parents as well, just to get a sense from the ordinary community members. Ma'am, you're also standing here forming this barricade together with other parents, saying that you will not allow any harm to come to the school.
That's right. As parents, when we arrived here, we decided that we are going to form the barricade around the school to protect the school. Our children are here, and this school is the jewel of this area. It's the only primary school in this area, and it's easy and accessible for our children. They have a state-of-the-art library. Our children spend hours here. As it is, like you said, we have nothing in this place. There is hunger here, there is poverty, you name it, but we are not going to allow this school to be burned down for criminality who wish to show what point, we don't know. We will not pay out to ransom. We will negotiate our way to whatever we want, and as the leadership has indicated here, they have started a process. We respect the process and we wait for the outcome. We will not allow nobody access here. We will rather die before they access the school, and that is where we stand as a community. The police were here, Major Marunzi, as you saw, asked us to disperse. We do not trust the police. The police in this place, they are corrupt. So as parents, yet again, we will take this in our hands, form the barricade, no weapons, people, we have no weapons, we have no rocks, no stones, and it will be like that. And we're going to keep it that way.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. Parents here saying they're taking matters into their own hands, saying they're going to stand here and protect the school over earlier threats to burn it down. And one of the local clinics here saying, one of the residents saying this is the jewel of this area where majority of the young people attend primary school, and are saying that they do not trust the police at this point. They're prepared to stand here without any weapons and protect the school. Also, I think of concern at this point is now what seems to be a division, because you've got the leadership that is saying they're distancing themselves from today's protest because of this pending meeting with the MEC of Human Settlements here in Gauteng, Paul Mashatile, tomorrow. Yet there's a protest this morning which they're saying is by those who want to pursue a criminal element and burn down schools and barricade the roads, the scenes that we've seen here this morning. So you've really got parents here really taking matters into their own hands, as police also in other areas around here in Annandale try to push back some of the protesters who continue to burn tyres and barricade some of the roads. This morning there, Urban and Elvis, we did see some scenes where motorists were quite frustrated, not able to move and go to work, and others were coming into the area because of the burning tyres that we saw on the corner of James Street, which is one of the main streets here in Annandale. So we'll certainly bring you a whole lot more here from Annandale as the community leadership tries to see what the way forward will be when you've got on the one end some of the residents who are accused of bringing the criminal element into this protest continue with their action, while the leadership of the community is saying that they are waiting for tomorrow's meeting with the Human Settlements MEC here in Gauteng, Paul Mashatile, and then they'll take a way forward from then.
Griselda, has the leadership indicated what the motivation for this other faction might be for the continuing protest?
Well, in speaking to the leadership, you don't know what the motivation is. Recall as well, when the police minister visited El Dorado Park yesterday evening, he did indicate there'd been massive concern about the criminal element that has crept into these protests, not just here in Annandale, but also in El Dorado Park and the other areas in Finetown, where we were broadcasting from yesterday. So the motivation behind that, certainly we cannot say what it is at the moment, but simply to report that the leadership of Annandale is saying that they're distancing themselves from any of the protest action that is taking place in this area. Perhaps, I guess one would say, there are those who want to take advantage of the situation by continuing to burn tires and making threats to burn down schools and infrastructure, which the community here says that they do not have. They're fighting for more infrastructure in this area, so it would be totally wrong, they say, to burn down what they have at the moment. And one of the very few infrastructure or schools that they're very proud of, including the one behind me. So the motivation behind it we certainly cannot say at this point, but certainly very worrying is the criminal element that has crept into these protests, not just here in Ennerdale, but in the other protest-wrecked areas where we've been broadcasting from.
And then just finally, Griselda, you did speak about the road closures a little bit earlier. Do we know which routes that motorists should avoid in that area?
Well, at this point, from where I'm standing, it's very difficult, to drive to the various areas there, Elvis. But what I can point out is there are still some flames, remnants of burning tires on James Street. If anybody, I guess, is within that area. But I think the good news is that you do have Metro Police as well as the South African Police Service that are trying to man the traffic in that area to ensure that people are able to go to where they want to and return into the township as well. But it's just that area, and I guess towards the Golden Highway, just before you enter the Ennerdale area. But police are trying their best at this point to try and make sure that cars are able to go in and out of the area. So I don't think motorists should avoid it at this point, because police are really trying to assist and make sure that people are able to move freely in this area.
Thank you so much for that report. You'll keep us updated and onto what is happening there in Ennerdale and the surrounding areas. That's our reporter Griselda Lewis joining us live from Ennerdale there. Now, that's why we're asking you this question this morning, and we want to find out from you, what do you make of all of this? Do you think that the actions, the protests are all politically motivated, perhaps, this latest wave of protests? Let's take a look at what you have to say on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on our Facebook page. This one from Ikona Nazo says, absolutely. How can protests escalate with such a speed in the entire South, including Orange Farm, with criminality and destruction? Well, there you have it from Ikona Nazo. Black or White says, it is clearly evident that there are political influences regarding the protest. Look at Colini and the EFF's response to reject reconciliation. Peter Mofokeng says, political agenda or not, let's not pass the ball around and gamble with people's lives. The government must fulfill its mandate. Well, there you have it. We'll keep on reading your comments. Keep them coming on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. But right now, this is what the police minister, Vakile Mbalula, had to say. And he had a stern warning for criminals whom he says are infiltrating the protest.
Let us work together for a peaceful maintenance and stability in the area. There is nobody who says citizens cannot demand what it is right for them, right? People must demand what it is right. Government must respond. But no violent protest will be allowed. Rule of law and order will prevail. We are warning them that please don't undertake the mission of doing things that are illegal, because the police will be there to maintain law and order. And that is all what we can ask to our citizens, that don't undertake illegal means of raising your voices. Don't do that. It is enough now. It is enough that children get shot in violent protest.
That's a stern warning from the police minister. But the focus this morning is on you and the workplace and harassment. And we are conducting a poll this morning, and we're asking you this question on your screen right now. Have you, and this is very personal, have you been bullied in the workplace? So far, 50-50, 114 votes in. It's very close. We're going to take that and put it under the microscope this morning. That is the topic. Let's go over to Evan to start that conversation.
It's interesting, these numbers. I was 50-50 on our poll. The official numbers are a lot higher, closer to 80%, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that shortly. Workplace harassment, yes, is once again under the spotlight here in South Africa. The South Gauteng High Court has ordered the University of Venda to take disciplinary action against its own Vice-Chancellor, Peter Mbati. after Professor Tidziambi Pandla brought a sexual harassment case against him. Now, in 2011, Pandla accused her boss of pestering her for sex and then being dismissed as Dean of the School of Education after she resisted. Now, earlier this year, a senior member of academic staff at the University of Witwatersrand here in Johannesburg was dismissed after the institution found him guilty of sexual harassment. Now, in a statement, the rector, Adam Abeb, said an independent investigation was undertaken after the staff member was accused of harassing 3 women. Now, although not a new phenomenon, workplace harassment, including acts of bullying, discrimination and sexual harassment, has been identified as one of the most rapidly increasing workplace problems, not just here, throughout the entire world. Now, the study by Work Dignity, the Work Dignity Institute rather, found that approximately 77.8% of South Africans had experienced workplace bullying. That's a very big number. However, no recent studies on the prevalence of workplace bullying in the South African context are available. Now, despite its prevalence, workplace harassment and bullying continues to be misunderstood and receive limited attention from employers, and subsequently these incidences remain underreported. Labour attorney Grant Wilkinson is with us in studio this morning to untangle the numbers a little bit and tell us what's really happening in the workplace. Very good morning to you, Grant. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
78% or nearly 78% of workers have experienced some form of bullying and harassment. That's the official numbers. Surely that's a grave concern.
It's a big concern. I think, one has to look at it and say, what are we doing as companies to ensure safe workplaces? The Employment Equity Act specifically asks us to prevent that type of harassment happening in the workplace, to provide safe workplaces. If we don't provide safe workplaces, particularly with, as an example, sexual harassment, we ourselves as employers can be sued for that. So that's the one negative aspect. But besides that, I think it is our responsibility to create a safe working environment and one that's more proactive in creating positivity in the workplace.
Why do you think there's the idea of this kind of leniency with regards to this type of harassment going on, specifically in professional spaces?
I think in professional spaces, look, you're dealing with historical professions as well.
Yeah.
A lot of it is blown out of proportion. In a legal profession, often they talk about these secretaries and their attorneys, etc., etc. It's often blown out of proportion. But I think historically, there are these workplaces where people work in professional environments more together than regularly. You don't work 9 till 5, you work till 10 at night, 8 at night. And that exposes one to that opportunity. And it's up to the individual themselves to choose that opportunity or not. If you're an ethical person, you don't choose that opportunity. You don't mix business with that. But the prevalence is picking up more and more, I think, on 2 fronts. I think society as a whole ethically has a lot to answer for. I think workplaces, they try not to deal with it because it's a difficult thing to deal with. You rather, if it's misconduct, it's easy. Sexual harassment, you actually have to get much more involved. You're about changing the mindset of individuals, etc. So it's a sticky thing to deal with. It's sensitive as well. Sometimes the victims don't want their names to be out there. They don't want the issue to be dealt with. They tell you, look, I'm telling you, but don't do anything about the guy. I like the guy, he just got out of hand. So it's about educating the workforce. And I think sometimes guys are very hesitant to educate their staff on the issue because it is so sensitive.
I want to ask you to explain to us what's happening with some of these cases, because in our research, we even come across things like stalking in the workplace. Talk to us about stalking and bullying.
Well, bullying in the workplace is very unreported in South Africa, strangely enough. Those statistics surprise me. I think worldwide it's coming to the fore. I know in America particularly, they are paying big attention to it. In South Africa, there's not that much attention being paid to. It is coming more to the fore, and I think part of the reason we're seeing more of these statistics is because people feel more open to report it in society. Social media has opened that up enormously in terms of the reporting processes as well. So bullying in the workplace is something where, often people would say, oh, come on, you're grown up, grow up, stand up to the situation. But it's very difficult when you're in a position of you, the guy subordinate, or the lady subordinate. Because remember, sexual harassment or harassment it doesn't matter the gender. There's ample case law where the offender was a woman against a man, where usually it is male versus female.
Men or females against females.
100%. Same-sex sexual harassment has been, in terms of the change codes on sexual harassment, has formed part of that in the amendments years ago.
What's the difference between this kind of harassment and the bullying scenarios that we see play out?
Well, bullying does fall under harassment in the true sense of the word. The harassment has expanded so much, like you're saying, stalking in the workplace, etc., that the legislature found it fit to create the Harassment Act. Whereas in the past, one felt, well, employment equity covers sexual harassment. There's a code of good practice for handling sexual harassment that should be fine. Harassment in the workplace, bullying, stalking, social media stalking, hanging around too much, racial comments, racial discrimination, all sorts, is just becoming a lot more prevalent in South Africa. And that's why the Harassment Act has come out and set out, here's the various types of harassment that occur in the workplace, and this is a company what you have to do proactively.
Is this part of the social media world that we're living in now, or is it just the kind of 21st century mentality where maybe we are a little bit more aggressive?
I think it's twofold. I think it's the instant satisfaction that one looks for in terms of your individual want. I want it now, and we're so used to getting what we want in the current society, the instant gratification society that social media brings, that it does open that up. People are becoming a lot more aggressive. They know what they want. They're going to go out there and grab it. Unfortunately, no pun intended sometimes.
Yeah, behind your screen you can be quite mean. So you're saying that meanness is translating into the workplace.
100%. I think people getting a lot more brazen in workplaces. It's easier behind a screen, let's be honest. And that's Twitter interaction or social media interaction has become a lot more prevalent. People hide behind names, aliases, etc. But let's be honest, it's happening more regularly in South Africa than what it has done a few years ago. Twofold, obviously. One is the brazenness in the workplace, but also that people report it more regularly now than what they have in the past. And it's about creating that safe space for guys to report it.
What do you tell your clients, or what do you tell the victims when they come to you and they say, listen, I can't anymore, I'm like at the end of the line here, I'm about to have a breakdown, what do I do?
I think with victims, it's the first thing is to report it to human resources. Human resources should be trained in terms of how to manage that type of situation. They handle it, if they handle it properly, it's about confidentiality, about managing the person's emotion. Balancing, especially on sexual harassment, objectivity versus subjectivity. It's the one test in South Africa where objectivity isn't only applied or subjectivity only is applied. You have to balance out how did the individual feel, also balancing out versus how would the reasonable person in the position of the victim have felt. Once you've established that there's merits to this, you talk to the accused, perhaps hide the victim's name, and then once you've finished that and had your investigation proper, then you need to decide whether to take action or not. What's just important to remember as companies is that what the victim wants in terms of an outcome is irrelevant. So if the victim says, look, don't do anything, just don't leave me alone. But your code says this leads to a hearing, you need to proceed with your hearing. Protect the victim as much as you can, though, create that safe space in the workplace.
It's about following through. Yes. But also then the workplace or the employer have to take some responsibility.
100%.
And when we talk about that responsibility, they're not at the moment because it's being underreported. How do we overcome that?
Well, I think it's about educating employers. Educating employers in terms of what they need to do, what their responsibilities are. A lot of people take for granted the necessity to provide a safe workspace. You talk about safe workspace, they lean towards occupational health and safety. It goes a lot further than that. It's about educating guys on diversity management, on sexual harassment, because people view sexual harassment differently. What is sexual harassment for you is not for me, and vice versa.
And in South Africa, even on race, we need to detangle it a little bit.
100%. And it's only through these diversity interventions that you can get it right. And you can do that either internally or externally. But you have to take responsibility. And inevitably, as a company, you have to understand your risks. And if you don't take responsibility, if you don't deal with the issue, yes, you can be sued by the individual. That client you told me about earlier, if the employer doesn't deal with it, then inevitably they can sue the employer in the long run, as well as the perpetrator.
That's interesting. That's interesting for me to find out. I'm not going to sue my employer at the moment, but it's interesting to know that. Grant, thanks for coming in today. Labour attorney Grant Wilkinson, he's just moved to Johannesburg from Cape Town. I hope that you enjoy the city of God.
Thank you very much. So far, so good. Thanks for having me.
Great stuff. That's Grant Wilkinson. Of course, we've been running a poll on this whole thing around workplace harassment, bullying, call it what you like. You guys have been asking you, have you been bullied? Have you been bullied in the workplace? And it's a much simpler thing. 50-50 of you are viewers. It seems as if you guys are below the national number. That's on 78% of people who are in the official say, yeah, they've been bullied. And it happens a lot. Anyhow, there's a lot happening around South Africa, mind you. Let's go onto our social pages quickly to have a look at which are the sort of hashtags that you should be on the lookout. Of course, this is the one. Ennerdale, that's where we start, where protests are continuing. The situation was tense yesterday and this morning. as residents continued clashing with police. Stones are still being thrown and a tear gas is being dispersed in the Ennerdale area. Residents, of course, are demanding housing. Then Laudium was also up in flames, with residents burning tyres, also claiming housing disputes there. That's the hashtag that you can interact with, of course. And these were the scenes in Laudium. Burning tyres on the roads. We've seen this a lot. Let's hope that we don't run out of tyres here in South Africa. Anyhow, in other news, people are talking about SABC TV licenses. Yes, for phones, tablets and other smart devices. Stugan Matabule posted this picture of a pot with stones in it and says, "We'll pay TV license for smart devices when these stones become soft." Yeah, everyone is good. People are not too happy about this, obviously, and they are taking it very, very seriously. But how are we going to pay for the content that you want to watch for free? Anyhow, we don't complain of paying high rates for other broadcasters, say some. Anyhow, this is the most shocking story doing the rounds right now in international news, of course. You as a parent, you need to be well aware of this. The Blue Whale game. Yeah, it's an online game that is challenging participants to commit suicide. The game's levels gradually become more extreme. One level encourages players to slit their wrists in the shape of a whale. And on the 50th and final day, the user is encouraged to then commit suicide. 130 deaths have already been linked to this game, mostly in Russia at the moment. It's not yet available in South Africa, but it's making headlines internationally. That's it. Blue Whale Challenge. Keep a lookout for it. Do some research on it and make sure that your children don't interact or play this game at all. Our picture of the day now. This one comes from KFC bans Blue Whale, and he says the picture is captioned, it's coming. Authorities are working with police to ensure that the Blue Whale game is not allowed in Kenya. First country to come out and say, not at all, not on our shores. We won't allow this game to take root here. Anyhow, comment of the day. Well, this one comes from Biggie at Trevor Willifant, who says, a good draw for South Africa. We're talking about Rugby World Cup. Whether we win or lose, we know we have passed New Zealand. Then we meet them again in the final. Rugby World Cup 2019, yes, South Africa drawn with New Zealand in Group B. Some say it's bad, others say it's good. I think it's good. You know, remember the last time we won the World Cup? We played against England in the first round. We beat England and we meet them in the final again and we beat them and won the World Cup. That's how it is. You've got to beat the best teams in the world. Anyhow, let's go for a quick roundup around the courts here. All the cases of interest that are being heard today. We'll start in Nelspruit, where a white farmer has been taken to court by a black farmer who shares the same farmlands. He's accusing his neighbour of abuse of his workers and killing his livestock. Interesting story. In Pretoria, 10 suspects are expected to appear in the magistrate's court there this morning. This after violent protests broke out at Itereleng near Laudium yesterday. The arrests are continuing in Johannesburg. Sentencing is expected in the murder case of former ANC Youth League leader Patrick Visani. He was found guilty of murdering his then 24-year-old partner Nosipo Madleleni in Yeoville in September of 2015, and of assaulting her twin sister Spokazi and her friend in an attempt to stop them from testifying against him. At the same time of the assault, Visani was out on bail. As a result, his bail was revoked in June of 2016 following the assault of the two women. We'll keep you updated on the story. Of course, today we're talking about bullying in the workplace. Go and tell us what you think about that. Of course, we've got a question. You can also tweet us and give us your views. Don't go away. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News.
It is 6 p.m. Central African Time, broadcasting live from Johannesburg. This is Primetime News.
South Africa said farewell to one of the Rivonia trialists, Uncle Kathy, a fearless stalwart.
With this man who was so engaged, so busy, so witty, so funny, so wise, and so incredibly principled.
Joseph Shabalala has been honored for his contribution to the South African music industry. A statue in his honor was unveiled during an annual gala dinner in Ladysmith.
The shot of the day, however, belonged to American Daniel Berger, who chipped in for an eagle on the par 4 fifth hole.
For all your news updates, stay on Primetime News every Saturday and Sunday from 6 p.m.
Now, every employee in the workplace, irrespective of their position, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. No one should suffer harassment or bullying while going about their work. Now, due to the increase of harassment in the workplace, the local government of New South Wales, the Rural Assistance Authority in Australia, have adopted a policy of zero tolerance to bullying at work. Trade unions, as representatives of workers, has a duty to assist in identifying, assessing and controlling workplace risk associated with bullying behavior in the workplace. Now, workplaces also are duty-bound to develop policies and procedures to prevent bullying behavior in the workplace. Now, from Solidarity Union Sector Coordinator Yanni de Villiers now joins us from our Pretoria studios. Now, she's also doing some research on harassment and bullying in the workplace. A very good morning to you, Yanni, and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
First and foremost, I would like to get your observation in relation to bullying. Is it in the increase? Because the numbers suggest that we have about 78% of workers that are experiencing bullying and abuse within the workplace.
You know, I think it's such a difficult thing to answer because it's such a chicken and egg kind of situation. I honestly think that the behavior has always been there, but we have recently found the language and the words to describe it. And we understand now in 2017 that it's a scourge and it does not have any place within a workplace.
Now, your sort of description of workplace harassment and bullying, and how does it constitute itself or manifest itself within the workplace?
I think as many people as you have and that you have contact with, that's how many different kinds of bullying and harassment you can find, unfortunately. We are in a situation where you're legally bound by the Employment Equity Act. You have certain conduct that is prohibited by the Employment Equity Act, and that's where we normally look to for definitions of this conduct. With regard to bullying and harassment, the most important thing to remember is this is conduct that is perpetrated upon someone that impairs their human dignity, and that is what is prohibited in terms of the Employment Equity Act.
Now, these acts of harassment and bullying, we believe, is on the increase, but we also believe that most cases are underreported. Why do you think is that the case?
Oh, you know, absolutely not even underreported, unreported completely. When I talk about sexual harassment, which is my area of research, I usually identify 5 ladies within the audience that I'm speaking to, and those 5 women will then symbolically represent the entire workplace's force of women workers. Now, of those 5, the shocking thing is 4 of them would have experienced sexual harassment within the workplace. Now, that's a number of 80%, so let that just sink in for a moment. Mm-hmm. Now, of those 4 that have reported it, or the 80%, only 10% go ahead with their case. Now, there are many, many reasons for this. It's very difficult within a workplace. If you look at big, formal corporate workplaces, you have grievance procedures, and then people have to follow the grievance process. If you're so traumatized by what's happened to you, then looking at taking your case further becomes this mountain in front of you. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I am incredibly passionate about, is that if you look at a workplace, and as a unionist specifically, there has to be psychological help for people who have gone through this trauma as well. Mm-hmm. You can't simply look at this from a legal perspective. We all know what's right and what's wrong, and we know what's legal, we know what's illegal. But the truth is that these employees, these workers who have gone through harassment and bullying, are impaired within themselves, and they've gone through tremendous trauma. And you have to find a way to deal with that trauma before you encourage someone to take their case forward. I firmly believe that if more emphasis is placed on that kind of workplace support and wellness, that we will have a situation where more of the cases are reported. I don't think you'll necessarily see an increase in sexual harassment cases. You'll just see the conduct that was perpetrated be reported and be addressed. And at the end of the day, if it's addressed, then hopefully the entire conduct will minimize within a workplace.
Now, Yanni, you've done some research on the subject. Take us through some of the research or the things that you find within your research and the recommendations that you've brought forward.
Absolutely. Well, I'm in that painful process with my master's degree now, where I'm finishing my dissertation. So you know how that is. I think as a parent, it's almost like having another child. So where I'm at with my research at the moment. Oh yes, you see, it's painful and wonderful in equal measure at this stage. So where I am is I've looked at the South African legal framework when it comes to sexual harassment specifically. To see whether there are changes that can be made. And the thing that bothered me right from the start specifically was the fact that this conduct is prolific within workplaces, but so few people come forward. Now, what I found now is, I think Grant mentioned the Harassment Act. It's something that to be kept in the back of your mind as well, that you can actually go and you can get a protection order against the person who's bullying you within the workplace. So if you're faced with that unfortunate situation where you have reported this and nothing gets done, and the employer doesn't heed their duty in terms of the Employment Equity Act to see that that conduct is addressed, then you have the right to actually go to the police and you can get a protection order against the colleague who's engaging in that conduct. The other very interesting thing, Grant touched on it as well, is in terms of Section 60 of the Employment Equity Act, an employer can be held vicariously liable for the actions of an employee in their workplace. And this is with regard to all discriminatory acts within the workplace. That includes sexual harassment, harassment of any other sort, bullying within the workplace. They are held liable for that. So you can sue your employer at the end of the day.
Now, we're running out of...
as a die-hard unionist.
Now,
yes.
Yes, just finish your sentence because we're running out of time.
Absolutely. Okay, my last sentence will be, as a die-hard unionist, you need to belong to a trade union in South Africa. Join unions, strengthen their numbers, and see to it that this kind of conduct is eradicated within the workplace.
And before I let you go, now New South Wales, the Rural Assistance Authority in Australia, they adopted a policy of zero tolerance to bullying at work. Should we not adopt the same stance here in South Africa, such as the adoption of the dignity and respect in the workplace charter that we've put forward?
Absolutely. I cannot stress that strongly enough. And that is definitely something that I feel that all unions need to put on their agenda when they go and speak to employers in the workplace.
Yanni, thank you so much for your time and joining us in our Pretoria studios.
Thank you very much.
There you have it, from Solidarity Union, the sector coordinator, Yanni de Villiers from our Pretoria studios. We continue, of course, we're asking you the very important question this morning that relates to the workplace, and it's very personal because it reflects on you, the workplace. Is there political, no, that's the question, sorry, I beg your pardon, on the poll that we're asking you. Have you been bullied within the workplace? And the numbers suggest that it was 50-50 a little earlier. We'll take a look at that. But let's now, in fact, let's take the question. We'll come back to the poll. There's the question once again. Remember the fires that we've seen and the protests that we've seen in Ennerdale and surrounding areas. Is there a political agenda behind the latest wave of protests? Let's take a look at what you have to say. United Newsroom says there is nothing political about this violent protest that's happening. People are fed up with this government. Sipo says, what irritates us is that when it's time to vote, officials are so nice to us. We are very vital to them. After winning, we are nothing. There's one from Barry Martin says, yes, absolutely. There's a political agenda here behind this, and this is the ANC government because they are dumping South Africa into this mess. Sipo Maforo says, There's no political agenda here. The ANC-led government failed us. Now, these are some of your comments on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom as well as on the Facebook page. You can let us know what's on your mind, and we'll read those comments during the course of the program. Let's now take a look at what's happening on the Facebook page, on your social media pages, and today we see the NGO Black Sash. They say they will continue fighting for the rights of the poor following the ruling of the High Court in Pretoria, which allows deductions from social grant recipients. Then, we also see an assessment is being conducted on whether to sell parts of the South African Airways to strategic equity partners. That's very interesting, isn't it? Now, this was revealed by the Finance Minister, Malusi Gigaba, while answering questions in the National Assembly yesterday. And finally, the city of Cape Town in the Western Cape says that violence and intimidation will not force it to suspend the service delivery project intended for residents of Tambo Square in Guguletu on the Cape Flats. Now, you can find this and more on our Facebook page and SABC News website. Those are all the news that we have for you on the website. You can go there and find it all. Let's now take a look at what's on the front pages of the newspapers from around the globe. And we start off in New York. The Wall Street Journal says reports that President Trump weighed in publicly for the first time on his firing of the FBI Director James Comey, while the top Senate Democrats questioned the timing of the ouster of the man who investigated Trump's campaign aides that was tied to Russia. Moving to Australia now, the Australian says that coalition reveals that a full $65.4 billion, that would be the cost of its company tax cuts over the next decade in a question the time fight with Labour. Finally, in China, the South China Morning Post reports that Japan is stepping up efforts to win a Malaysia-Singapore high-speed railway project by sending a high-level mission to Kuala Lumpur to campaign for the adoption of the Shinkansen bullet train system. There you have it. Those are all the front pages of the newspapers from around the globe. We continue our discussion this morning on bullying in the workplace and harassment. Let's find out more from Evan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alice. Very good morning to you. You've just joined us. We're talking about, well, bullying and harassment in the workplace. For many institutions, human resources is the unit that's designated to address workplace bullying. Yet, as reflected in comments in the recent article by the leading career information in academia website Higher Ed Jobs, some people perceive HR as the office of last resort to seek help. Reasons vary, but generally boil down to perceptions that HR's role is to protect the institution from liability rather than to support the target, as though these two interests are mutually exclusive. Not to discuss avenues employees can explore when they are bullied, we are joined in studio by human resources specialist and managing partner at Executives Online. It's Alison Hassan. A very good morning to you, Alison. Thanks for being with us.
Morning, thank you.
Alison, a lot that was said in that introduction there. The thing that stands out to me is the one around HR's role within dealing with the problem. How does HR, what's the point of departure for HR? Is it a scenario that they feel that they have to protect the rights of the business, or is it the rights of the individual, and what's that balance?
I would say there's a seriously fine line. I think having been on both sides of the spectrum, so having worked in corporates for many years, I think about 16 years, and moving out of that into more an advisory role in recruitment and HR consulting to people changing jobs, I've seen both sides. And I think there is a fine line. I think HR tends to support the organization more than the employee, and people don't know where to turn. And sometimes it is, the HR person is involved in some of those processes, and it leaves you no room to go. So I would say, from my own experience, having been harassed in doing the research yesterday after being asked to be here, I went back to my very first job having been harassed myself. So, and I know what that's like. And I would say for me, it's about standing up. So standing up to first the person who is either targeting you, because it's a feeling of abuse and being targeted, and standing up for yourself. I think the first port of call would be to take on that person. whether they, and if you look at the stats, it's more somebody that's more senior than you normally in a supervisory role or capacity or management, and sometimes leadership. So I think the important parts is to take it on in a structure, and I would say first take on the person. If you go nowhere from that perspective, because sometimes people don't know how harsh they are or what they're doing, and when they point it out, I think it makes a massive difference. And then maybe going to HR afterwards or escalating it furher. So
you say communicating all around is the first port of call, and then you can escalate it. But I want to ask you about the number, because 77.8% of all professionals in South Africa polled say they've been bullied. Are you surprised by that number, and how do we deal with it?
Not surprised by the number. I mean, if you looked at some of the global stats, I mean, it's really interesting. I would say South Africa is really high. If you look at the US number, it's sitting at about 57% of employees saying they've been harassed. Of that 57%, and we don't have those stats in South Africa because it's never been studied to this level or this degree, in that you would find that 70% of that grouping is actually males targeting others in organizations, and often in more senior positions to the person that they're targeting. And then 58% of that being females being targeted in the workplace. So those stats are really high. And funny, there's a flip side to that, in that if you look at women against women in the workplace, that's even higher. You know, it's like 84%.
So women are more likely to victimize other women?
Absolutely.
Is that just in business, or is it in life as well?
You know, it's an interesting question. And there's a lot of debate around it, because I think most women in corporates, that especially the ones that are progressing, often get, you know, victimized or targeted, or, you know, it's the insecurity that's felt, I think.
You've been in corporate for so long. You must know the book Snakes in Suits, about how you have to be a bit of a psychopath in order to get ahead in the corporate world. How do you view that kind of mentality?
I think it's because of other people's behavior and how you feel like you need to fit in. And people do, I believe, change as they grow older in an organization or progress, in that you feel like you have to change. And I don't think that you necessarily have to. You don't have to become a different person to be seen or heard, or to get that next leadership position or management position.
The line between the senior manager victimizing you or getting you to deliver more, where is that line, and how should that line be assessed?
Well, that's also an interesting one, in that I think it's how you perceive this targeting or harassment or bullying or abuse that you're experiencing. I think people also need to review themselves, that it's not an underperformance issue, because I think that there is a fine line. Because if you're not performing and somebody starts screaming at you, that's not abuse. You know, yes, it could be handled differently, but sometimes you take people to a point because you're still not performing. So I would say underperformance, fine line in terms of...
How do you overcome it? Because it's a two-way street. There's one, the senior manager needs his team to operate and function at its optimum in order to get results. Then you have members of staff, of course, who feel that they have other responsibilities. You talk about that fine line. Let's put on the other hat and look at the senior manager. What would your advice then be to those that are managing teams and have members of staff who are not delivering, if you can call it that?
I think it's the approach in how you communicate with your staff. I don't think that the screaming, shouting or swearing or abusing staff to get what you want out of them. You know, there's that saying, it's an old saying, the stick approach. Some people think that the stick approach and micromanagement gets the best out of people. I think in understanding who your team are and why they're not delivering is really important. So again, it's that communication, one-on-one conversations. And sometimes it has to be upward, because you know, the manager is not doing it with you. And sometimes I think that corporates, you know, I blame corporates in terms of training, because sometimes it's a capability issue.
Are we going to spend a lot of time at HR going forward?
Absolutely.
It certainly looks like it. Alison, thank you very much for joining us. Alison Hassan, she's a managing partner at Executives Online and, well, a human resources specialist. And she's also been bullied, sexually harassed, the whole thing, but we've all been exposed to that. Alison, thank you very much for joining us today. Alison's about to leave us, but we've been running a poll. we're asking you, have you been bullied in the workplace? And what has your experience been? Well, you can tweet us. We've got 136 votes in. 54% say, yes, I have been bullied, which is concerning. But if you look at the real research numbers, it says 77.8% of professionals in South Africa claim to have been bullied. Well, we'll talk about that in the next hour. But of course, last night, Wits woke up, well, they woke up this morning a little bit less sure of themselves after a 3-1 loss to their bogey team, Free State Stars. Even their coach, Gavin Hunt, was more reserved than usual in his post-match interview. Now, I got Kendall here with me. Kendall, did they fall over their own feet last night, and did they kiss the title goodbye?
They did a little bit. And you know what's also very interesting? The same thing was happening at Mamelodi Sundowns against Baroka FC, because Mamelodi Sundowns were in prime position to take over at the helm of at the summit of the Absa Premiership, and they didn't.
Yeah, interesting one. If you had to pick a winner of the title, locally, who would it be? Who would be your favourite?
I would say Mamelodi Sundowns.
Yeah?
I'll say purely because Mamelodi Sundowns have been here before and actually crossed the finish line, whereas our Wits have been known to fall over their own feet in the last 2, 3, 4 matches and actually blow it like they did last night.
Yeah, it's about a winning mentality at the end and experience, as you point out. But there was a big match last night. Of course, we are right in the thick of international soccer season right now. Real through last night in a charged atmosphere, I have to say, at the Vicente Calderon. The last time they played there.
Yeah, and the very last time that they were going to be playing a Champions League match at the Calderon, they're going to be moving just around the corner to, I think, a 14,000-seater, more like the Metropolitan. 68,000 they're going to be moving to. It was charged. It was literally, it seemed like I was watching Diego Simeone up against Zinedine Zidane. Yeah. And you will remember that they have played each other in the field of play before.
Many times.
Yeah, no, it was very interesting. It was intense. Getting the 2 goals they needed, but Isco's goal really settled it.
Yeah, it sort of sucked the life out of, or the oxygen out of the stadium there.
Absolutely.
I must say, when they scored those 2 goals in the first 15, 16 minutes, it was buzzing. It felt like that stadium was going to take off.
No, it really did feel like it. And you know what? You know what's very interesting about the final that we're going to be seeing against Juve? The last time that these two met in the final was in 1998. It was Juve against Real Madrid, and it was Real Madrid's first European title in 32 years.
That's right. The volley, was it the volley, the Zidane volley?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
It was in the semi-final.
It was, yes, it wasn't the semi-final. But what was very interesting about this, and there's something else about Zidane that I need to remind you of, as well as our viewers. But 32 years, in that time since 98, Eben, they've won 11. Yep. Real Madrid have won 11 since that time. And what I wanted to say about Zinedine Zidane, in that match, he was playing for Juve.
Wow. Interesting story. Well, the story of this life is written in irony. That's how it is. You have to learn how to understand what's in the gaps. Yeah. Thanks, Kendall. Kendall will be with us to give us a complete wrap of, well, what's been happening in the world of football, but there's a whole lot of other sports at 10:40. We're going to take a little break now, a couple of minutes till the top of the hour. We come back, bring you a complete lowdown, what's happening in Enidale, what's happening elsewhere in the world, Laudium and the like at 10 o'clock. Don't go away.
Do you support the calls made by Blayton Nzimande and Solly Mapaila?
It is not a call by Comrade Solly Mapaila and Comrade Blayton Nzimande. It is the position of the party.
Yes.
And the position of the party, we support it unambiguously.
Why?
The theory of the revolution, in simple terms, was that revolutionary forces are going to take charge of the state. And having taken charge of the state, they are going to transform the state to eventually transform society.
Join me in Port Sedu live every Monday to Thursday at 17:30.
What is environmental health?
In Section 24 of the Constitution, the environmental right has a second part, which is to encourage people to be active citizens and gives us the right to participate in politics and organize and raise awareness. so that the environmental right can be guaranteed.
Using coal and wood and paraffin to cook with or to heat their space or to heat water. These are basic fundamentals, and I think if we can address that alone, we will make a huge impact, an environmental impact on the health of our population.
Food that comes into the country, the vigilance at the ports and harbours is being checked at the moment currently by environmental practitioners who are port officers at those ports. They need to be more stringent in terms of control of what comes into the country.
Join Health Talk every Saturday for all your health news.
Phones, cloud systems and robots have taken over a lot of what used to be done manually.
Our accounting system is actually based on the cloud.
Google nowadays can tell you where you parked your car.
And Africa's entrepreneurs are using technology to create.
With Pocket Masipala, you can basically do all the services that you would do at the municipality physically by going there, but you can now do them on a mobile app.
Join me, Phumelele Zondi, on Sundays at 9 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back, everybody. It's just gone 10 a.m. Central African time, that is. You're watching the Newsroom show. I'm Evan Janssen and I'm with Kendall. Welcome out. Good morning, Kendall.
A very good morning to you.
Nice to be back. We're dealing with issues of roads, closures and the like down in the south. Are you surprised with what's happening down in Annandale? They're telling motorists to avoid the south as much as possible.
Not at all. Look, I saw a headline the other day calling us the protest nation. It seems as if that is the order of the day and it's becoming more and more prevalent. So
our focus is that areas in the south of Johannesburg have been under lockdown the whole week due to what they call service delivery protests, which has now spread to Tshwane. Laudium is the place. So we've been asking you the specific question of the day. Is there a political agenda behind the latest wave of protests, Kendall? What do you think about that question?
I think there's a lot to be said. It's a loaded question, and I think it's there for a reason, because it seems like it is exactly like that.
Okay, so we're also running a poll, of course, today. That's a tweet us. We haven't got any new tweets on it, so tweet us on that. Do you think there's a political agenda with regards to that? But if you've watched the first hour, we're dealing with workplace harassment, bullying, discrimination, sexual harassment. It's been identified as one of the most rapidly increasing workplace problems throughout the world. So we've been asking you in our poll, Kendall, have you been bullied in the workplace? And the numbers are 54% to 46%. Of 143 votes, but when we spoke to the experts earlier, they said the number could be as high as 80%.
Yeah, no, actually, obviously, once again, this is a snap poll that we're doing, and very interesting that the experts came up with those numbers, and 143 votes in so far. Zolisi Kagnengle says the employer has an obligation to run awareness and seminars to make conditions conducive for their staff members across the levels.
Across all levels. Interesting. He comes back and he says people mustn't subject themselves in being bullied. There's HR where one must go to report any bullying tendencies by whoever.
And Sipho Mahoro says no, but it happens many times, women bullying each other at work.
Sipho, that's the third tweet you send in about women being bullies in the workplace. I wonder if you have an agenda, my friend. Tell me, what are you doing? What are you doing today? Anyhow, there's a lot of work to get through in the next hour. Kendall's going to go over to the sports desk and I'm going to give you the news headlines. Motorists have been warned to avoid certain routes as a result of ongoing service delivery protests in the south of Johannesburg. Police Minister Fikile Mbalula sends a stern warning to criminals who he says are infiltrating legitimate protests. The ANC's Northern Cape Conference kicks off today amid the urgent cabinet reshuffle by the Provincial Cape Premier overnight. Well, those are our top stories. Let's go over to Kendall to get the sport.
Evan, thank you very much. Good morning to you all at home. This is what we've got for you in the world of sports today. Bidvest Spurs hold on to their place at the top of the Absa Premiership even after a 3-1 loss to Free State Stars at Goble Park last night.
Yeah, look, our goal difference is bad, so, you know, we'll see how we go. We'll keep going and try and finish the season.
Real Madrid get the better of their less fortunate neighbours, Atletico, again, as they set up a UEFA Champions League final appointment with the old lady of Turin, Juventus.
That's what Real Madrid were wanting, and it's come close to half-time. It's put a different complexion on the semi-final.
We're coming here to try and win the thing, and as long as we acknowledge that to ourselves, that creates pressure, and acknowledge to ourselves how we're going to deal with that pressure, then it doesn't become a burden.
With the Rugby World Cup draw done and dusted, All Blacks coach Steve Hansen is not fazed by the pressure that comes with being the best team in the world. Stay close to us. We'll be bringing this to you in more detail at 10:40. For now, it's back to Eben, who's got the news.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kendall. Very good morning to you. Our top story right now. Johannesburg Metropolitan Police warns motorists to avoid certain routes as a result of ongoing violent protests here in the south of Johannesburg. Protesting residents of Orange Farm and Ennerdale have barricaded the Golden Highway. They are reported to be pelting motorists on James Road and other provincial roads with stones. The residents of Ennerdale, south of Johannesburg, have returned to the streets to demand improved service delivery, particularly housing, they say. They are reported to be pelting vehicles with stones. Eldorado Park, Freedom Park, Kliptown, Lenasia, Ennerdale and Finetown have been gripped by violent service delivery protests recently. More than 50 people have now been arrested. Now, a little bit earlier, about an hour ago, our reporter Griselda Lewis spoke with residents of Ennerdale following threats by some protesters to burn down a school in the area.
Right of today, we're saying as Ennerdale stakeholders, we are distancing ourselves because it is a criminal element, and we are not going to get involved in burning down infrastructures that we already don't have in Ennerdale. But Ennerdale Primary School is one of the schools that I personally have started from. My children is at school, and I have a granddaughter that I'm actually looking forward to enrolling at the very same school. So we are not going to entertain criminals to get away with murder and come and burn down a school. Even if it means that we barricade the school ourselves as protesters to safeguard the building of the school as well as the educators in the school.
Who are these people? Have you been able to identify them? Because yes, you've been protesting over housing, and I understand you've decided to halt your protest because there's a pending meeting with the MEC of Human Settlements, Paul Mashatile, tomorrow.
That's correct. We have a meeting tomorrow with the MEC and all the other HODs of infrastructures with regards to the development of Ennerdale Extension 6 as well as Ennerdale Extension 2. So I don't know who these people are. They went to start burning down. The strike started in the early morning hours. I was only told about it this morning around about 5:30 when I started receiving calls from the community because the people thought that it is the Ennerdale stakeholders that is behind it. And I have released a statement saying that no, we are not behind it. We are engaging tomorrow, and the community at large is aware of the engagement that we as the leaders are having tomorrow with the Human Settlements Office as well as the HODs of the infrastructures and the Urban Dynamics, who is the consultants which is busy with the development.
All right, Marge, let me bring in one of the other parents as well, just to get a sense from the ordinary community members. Ma'am, you're also standing here forming this barricade together with other parents, saying that you will not allow any harm to come to the school.
That's right. As parents, when we arrived here, we decided that we are going to form the barricade around the school to protect the school. Our children are here, and this school is the jewel of this area. It's the only primary school in this area, and it's easy and accessible for our children. They have a state-of-the-art library. Our children spend hours here. As it is, like you said, we have nothing in this place. There is hunger here, there is poverty, you name it, but we are not going to allow this school to be burned down for criminality who wish to show what point we don't know. We will not pay out to ransom. We will negotiate our way to whatever we want. And as the leadership has indicated here, they have started a process. We respect the process and we wait for the outcome. We will not allow nobody access here. We will rather die before they access the school. And that is where we stand as a community. The police were here, Major Marunzi, as you saw, asked us to disperse. We do not trust the police. The police in this place, they are corrupt. So as parents, yet again, we will take this in our hands, form the barricade, no weapons, people, we have no weapons, we have no rocks, no stones, and it will be like that. And we're going to keep it that way.
Meanwhile, the community of Itereleng near Laudium in Pretoria will meet the MMC for Housing later today to address their demands. Yesterday, residents burnt tyres and debris, and they blocked the R55 with rocks to protest over a lack of basic services. They say they were promised water and electricity in the township by 2017. 10 protesters were arrested and they are expected to appear in court at some point today. Police Minister Fikile Mbalula in turn says enough is enough with these violent protests. He warns that although it is not a desirable sight to see people being dispersed with rubber bullets, police will be left with no other option should protesters not operate within the law. He adds that there's no reason why authorities cannot listen to concerns if people organize peaceful marches to their offices.
People who want to meet Herman Mashaba as the mayor, they must meet him. But they've got no right to destroy property. And we are warning citizens again, don't be misused. There is nothing wrong. The mayor, I'm sure wherever he is, he's ready to listen to anybody. Or the MECs, they are ready to listen to anybody. I don't think the mayor of the city of Johannesburg can deny citizens their right to speak to them. You will never. That is very clear, even that message. That is anarchy. That is disorder. You see, and there is nothing that prevents citizens from marching to the office of the mayor legally to march and demand what is rightfully theirs. But I know that the mayor will be ready to talk to them, and even at the provincial government, MECs or whoever will be ready to talk to them. We are warning them that please don't undertake the mission of doing things that are illegal, because the police will be there to maintain law and order. And that is all what we can ask to our citizens, that don't undertake illegal means of raising your voices. Don't do that. It is enough now. It is enough that children get shot in violent protests. Children must go to school and all of that. And please, dissuade children and everybody else from doing illegal activities, because that is dangerous and it is not palatable. It is not nice to see people being shot with rubber bullets and all of that, because there is no choice.
Settlements Minister Lindiwe Sisulu is set to intervene in the ongoing protests over housing here in Gauteng. Minister Sisulu will meet Cooperative Governance Minister Des van Rooyen, Gauteng Human Settlements MEC Paul Mashatile, and the mayors of the Tshwane Metro and Johannesburg. Now, several townships, including Eldorado Park, Kliptown, Freedom Park, Finetown, and Lenasia, have been under lockdown since last week. The department says the minister will also be leading a government delegation that will be visiting the affected communities, speaking specifically to representatives of these different communities, and then chart a way forward collectively. The ANC is to embark on mass action against what the party in KwaZulu-Natal calls the court's infringement on the separation of powers. Now, this comes as pressure mounts on President Jacob Zuma, with 2 cases before him right now in the High Court in Pretoria. The President has asked for leave to appeal a ruling that he give reasons for firing former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan. The Helen Suzman Foundation has filed an application with the Constitutional Court in a bid to declare Zuma's March the 30th cabinet reshuffle unconstitutional. Moving to the Northern Cape, Premier Sylvia Lucas has announced an urgent cabinet reshuffle ahead of the ANC's provincial conference starting in Colesberg today. Lucas and Provincial Secretary Zamani Sol are vying for the position of chairperson. The new MECs include Mkolisi Sokacha as Sports, Arts and Culture MEC and Bongiwe Mbingo Gigaba as the Public Works MEC. Now, in a strongly worded statement, the provincial ANC labelled the reshuffle as grossly irresponsible, reckless and self-serving. The DA has also expressed surprise but welcomed the move.
We welcome the appointment of, in particular, Gail Parker as the MEC for Finance, as well as Sandra Beekes as the new MEC for Safety and Liaison. We have had a long-standing relationship in the legislature whereby both these individuals have proven that to themselves and to the people out there that they are there to serve the interests of the communities. They are there to serve the interests of those people who have placed them in those positions.
Now for an update on what is happening at the conference itself, our reporter Neria Tlakotsa is in Colesberg and she joins us live. Very good morning to you, Neria. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning to you. Of course, we are today here in Colesberg for the highly anticipated 8th Provincial Elective Conference of the ANC. And as you know, that this comes at the back of the reshuffle that happened yesterday by the Premier of the province, Sylvia Lucas. And we've heard, of course, from all sides. We heard from COSATU, we've heard from ANC in the province also, just speaking about how shocked they are about this sudden reshuffle. And of course, we did also hear some structures, however, also welcoming the reshuffle. But word on the ground also has it that the Premier's reshuffle was mainly to ensure that she gets people that are on her side happy. And of course, this is for her to garner more votes. As we do know, she's going head to head with Provincial Secretary Zamani Sol. And some are saying that she's keeping her loyalists closer. And those that she feels that are not so loyal to her, that's why she had to get rid of them. And we do know some of them are McJack among others. But however, right now, and Ben, I am joined by COSATU in the province, Anele Kloya, just to tell us also as alliance partners, how do they feel about this sudden reshuffle and whether this will somehow influence the conference and what could come out of this conference. Anele, thank you so much for joining us. We saw yesterday, 3 p.m., this is when Premier Sylvia Lucas decides to reshuffle. What's COSATU's take on this?
As COSATU, we are very much shocked, but we are not surprised at this behavior, because this childish and factional behavior defines to us who Sylvia Lucas is. It also tells us where she comes from, that she does not understand the culture and tradition of the African National Congress. She employs the monkey see, monkey do tactics. In that, not very long ago, the president of the country did the same thing. Went ahead and made a major reshuffle without consulting and came back to apologize to the ANC leadership. She maybe thinks that she will also just apologize and it will be water under the bridge. And it's not the first thing. Since Sylvia Lucas came into office, she has consistently worked outside the collective. She doesn't know what collective leadership means. She has appointed heads of department without the ANC's knowledge, without the alliance. And we know that the tradition of the ANC is that whenever there are changes in serious positions, what we call a serious strategic deployment, there's always engagements. So this reshuffling is clearly not based on competence and the intention to intensify service delivery, but it is based on compensating those that she sees to be loyal to her, those that she sees to be supporting her out and out. But our major call is that this conference of the ANC should not be reduced into elevating her into something that she is not. The delegates must be focused, discuss the real issues that affect the poor and the working class of the province. Discuss the issues of the lack of jobs, high levels of poverty in the province, the recent employment equity report that shows that there's no transformation, especially in the private sector. So that should be the main focus of the conference. And the conference can only maybe just mandate the incoming leadership to take appropriate action. But we are of the view that there should be action, there should be consequences for this un-ANC behavior.
There you have it from COSATU, of course. Once again, also lamenting the fact that what Premier Sylvia Lucas did yesterday or at 3 p.m. was a shock. And of course, we hear also that COSATU urging members and of course the delegates not to be fazed by these actions and focus on the bigger goal. And of course, we know this is to replace former chairperson John Block and finally have a new chairperson for the Northern Cape. Let me cross back to you in studio.
Yeah, thank you very much, Neria Hlakot from Colesberg in the Northern Cape, bringing us that report. Now, let's move back to our theme for today. Of course, we'll be dealing with bullying in the workplace, harassment, sexual harassment and others. Researchers at the University of Manitoba in the United States have found that workplace bullying inflicts more harm on employees than sexual harassment for that matter. Now, compared to victims of sexual harassment in the workplace, bullied employees showed more job stress, less commitment to the company and higher levels of anxiety and anger. To talk about how bullying affects the company's bottom line and overall team morale, we are joined by the Executive Manager of Productivity Organisation Solutions at Productivity South Africa, Lalani Jansen van Rensburg. Very good morning to you, Lalani. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Now, when we talk about the issues around bullying and how it affects the bottom line, what are we seeing?
Well, this is a well-debated topic, but not a lot of research is on it, and some of the previous guests have spoken on it. But as South Africa, we're not doing enough. We're not knowledgeable about the topic of harassment. My specific field of research is called toxic leadership. It's from a leadership paradigm.
Yeah.
I'm an industrial psychologist intern, and the focus area is around looking at how it influences productivity in any workplace environment, in any group, both on an individual or on a team level. Interestingly enough, we've spoken about bully and the supervisor relationship and the peer relationship, but have we spoken about the fact that you should ask yourself, am I a bully? Because a lot of people are a bully. Most of us have been bullied, but most of us have bullied as well. So there are different paradigms to look at. And the interesting thing here, the interesting thing that you should self-reflect on and introspect is nobody likes to be called a bully. Nobody's going to self-identify, hi, my name's Lalani and I'm a bully. You don't do that kind of thing. But you can look at symptoms of this. So awareness is key. Awareness is key so that you can be the leader you were supposed to be at the end of the day and so that you can influence your team. And that influences productivity.
That influence on productivity, is it a reduction in productivity?
Interestingly enough, the research indicates that there is a positive skewness in productivity as well, because it depends on who the bully is.
Yeah.
You can actually influence productivity levels up to a certain extent if you're a toxic leader. Toxic leader is AKA a bully in the workplace. But assertiveness taken too far becomes toxic. So you can drive productivity in your team and drive it. But if you do not recognize symptoms in the workplace, that becomes toxic. So there's a big responsibility that leadership have to know whether you're a bully or not.
Talk to me about the toxic environment in the workplace and what are the effects of a toxic environment or toxic environment within a team? I
think I like to think about a toxic environment as poison. It's like swimming in poisonous water. Everybody who swims there will be contaminated. Now, if one person in a team is toxic, whether you are aware of it or not, you are going to contaminate your team, which is going to contaminate the morale of the rest of the organization. That influences productivity. You can think of it like a train. The train is on a rail. Every component of the train is a member of your team. if one derails that train, doesn't matter who the passengers are, the train is going to go down.
Does bullying promote absenteeism and does an effect on productivity that way?
Well, one of the easiest ways of getting away from a toxic person, be it a leader, a toxic team member, it could be your toxic receptionist. Getting away from someone who's toxic is easy. Then you can stay away because it's a traumatizing experience. Doesn't matter who you are, you experience trauma. So from a humanitarian perspective, it's important to know that yes, it's maybe better to remove yourself from that environment, but the influence on your organization at the end of the day is detrimental. Absenteeism is going to shoot through the roof because you're hiding. It's better to call it out for what it is, confront the situation. You've had a lot of advice. I'm not going to repeat the advice, but from a personal perspective, you have a responsibility to yourself and your organization to be self-aware and to reflect on it.
As a leader, where's the line? And it's a fine line between pushing productivity and pushing too far.
I think that is such a brilliant question. And that is, as I said, my research field, because it depends on who's asking the question. Is it the organization or the employee? So that fine line is where the two meet. They meet in order to reach productivity. All of us want to be productive. Someone just needs to inspire that. Productivity SA, where I am housed, we try and inspire productivity in the workplace. So we have certain workshops that we do. We come in, we measure your productivity and look at the aspects. And if you feel maybe you need a bit of assistance, you're toxic, you could identify yourself and we can help you too.
Now, we've been running a poll to ask people if they've been bullied. I want to look at, they're also tweeting us. I want you to maybe interact with the poll a little bit. There we have it on screen. Have you been bullied in the workplaces? What we're asking, we've got 151 people that have voted, and about 54% are saying, yes, we've been bullied. 46% are saying no. The official numbers are putting it at 77.8% of people have been bullied in the workplace here in South Africa. How do you view this?
I think the official numbers are not even correct. Not everybody takes place or intercepts and likes to participate in these things. I think it's very high. But I don't think people like to admit that they're being bullied. We said male, female, it's really not a gender thing. It's a human thing. And some people don't like to admit when they're traumatized.
Our viewers are tweeting us, this one from Mzoli Sihini. He says, our workplaces must stop employing policy applying policy selectively to punish or charge staff members. Staff members must be taught, I think is the word. Must be taught, means must be developed. Sipho Mtembu says, no, I see sometimes it counts who you hang around with and associate with in the workplace. Do you agree with that?
I do. Sipho, I agree with you. I think it's very, very important. Toxic pulls toxic. You're going to associate yourself with toxic people. It's very important. I told my team to sit and look at me today and listen to what I'm saying, because every member of your team is equally important. You need to associate yourself with individuals who uplift you, who make you feel positive so that you can be an ambassador of change.
Rain Dekema comes in, he talked about Yanni de Villiers, the previous interview. He said, excellent interview, important to join a union to protect yourself in the workplace. How's that?
I think it's important to join a union, but don't see yourself in isolation. You're not just one thing. You're not just a leader. You're a human being. You're a mother. You're a father. You're a sister, brother. Join a union if you feel that's necessary. I believe in that. But self-reflection, introspection, and changing yourself, being the best change you can be, that's going to influence the system.
Often we focus on the victim and not the perpetrator so much. The perpetrator herself has a bottom line to deliver on and has to push productivity and have to push members of staff to get the maximum out of them. It's a two-way street, isn't it?
Definitely. It's a two-way street. Sorry, did you finish your question?
Yeah,
I'm so excited about this. It's a two-way street, but you can actually see a toxic person. You can see when they're pushing the line by the ways that they behave. Toxic leaders, toxic employees, you can see that they actually get excited when someone else is traumatized. When you can observe excitement and you can observe pain and you get a thrill out of it, you've crossed the line.
Is that antisocial behavior?
Yes, it is. Antisocial behavior is very toxic to the system. You mentioned snakes in suits.
Snakes in suits, one of my favorite things.
There are many, many, many books like that. But bottom line, as I said, it's not a gender thing. It's a human thing, and it's a behavioral thing. And all in all, it's a choice thing. You choose to cross the line, and you know when you cross it, because a toxic person chooses a victim. So there's a selective choice that you make.
Now, we talk about the snakes in suits thing a little bit, where you're almost schooled to become a little bit psychopathic in order to be unfeeling, in order to be advanced in corporate South Africa and the corporate world in general.
Yes.
How do you overcome the historical context and the damage that outlook has caused us?
The beautiful thing about being a human being is you can overcome anything. You do not mimic behavior because it looks powerful. Be the individual that you are supposed to be, and your leadership style, whenever and in whatever situation it is, make use of what you know. You have so many schools of thought in this regard, but use what you've built up. And think about it like this. You might not want to admit that you're toxic, but you know when you've done wrong. You need to reflect and change your behavior to change the world.
In conclusion, I want to put on the hat of the leader a little bit, because I lead a team myself. What advice do you give to me, who leads a team, who's very passionate, and often you are faced with people who don't want to do their work, do it lackadaisically, but who are quick to run to HR that they are being bullied or they're being hurt in some way, but they don't want to do their work. Is it about writing reports all the time? Because I find that to be counterproductive.
It's a very, very loaded question. As a leader, you have to make a decision every day to start your day new and fresh, not with yesterday's content, but with today's content. You start it new and you're present in the now. You take every situation that happens in your team, and when it's done, and you move on.
So you individualize every instance so that you can compartmentalize it and don't carry the mental scarring and baggage with you.
Don't carry it because you are the leader. You need to lead your team.
Leilani Jansen van Rensburg, thank you very much for joining us. She's the Executive Manager of Productivity Organisation Solutions at Productivity South Africa. Great to have you with us, and some real pearls of wisdom there. Thank you for joining us. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about bullying in the workplace. Don't go away.
Phones, cloud systems and robots have taken over a lot of what used to be done manually.
Our accounting system is actually based on the cloud.
Google nowadays can tell you where you parked your car.
And Africa's entrepreneurs are using technology to create.
With Pocket Masipala, you can basically do all the services that you would do at the municipality physically by going there, but you can now do them on a mobile app.
Join Ms. Phumelele Zondi on Sundays at 9 p.m. on SABC News.
A top 5 rated horse racing event in the world, fashion is a highlight for those in attendance. All decked out in blue and white, the Lomorians Queen Plate is the premier event that kicked off everyone's social calendar.
That it was all part of my master plan to cast John Legend, but deprive him of his normal instrument and give that one to Ryan.
The House of Truth is not just a name. It is a religion. It is a lifestyle. It is a conviction that drives us.
What really excites me is how people have kept it very simple and also played with the theme, and how each person has interpreted it in their own way.
To stay updated with all the current entertainment news, tune into Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
Welcome back here with Newsroom on SABC News. It's always in the best interest of any organisation to confront workplace bullying and maintain a bullying-free workplace. It's believed that prevention is more cost-effective than intervention or even mediation. Now, the former editor of Columbus Parent magazine in the United States, Sherry Gordon, says employers must offer education opportunities for managers, supervisors and other authority figures because the majority of workplace bullying comes from bullying bosses. Now, psychologists say bullied workers can't perform their jobs to the best of their ability. To discuss the psychological effect of office bullying, we are joined in studio by Nkini Pasha. He's a clinical psychologist and board member at the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. A very good morning to you and thank you for being with us.
Good morning. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Researchers at the University of Manitoba in the US, they found that workplace bullying inflicts more harm on employees than even sexual harassment.
Indeed, and I think one must also remember that, work environments are meant to be, places where individuals really feel, motivated, stimulated, but most importantly as well, that they can be able to have fun, whilst they're doing their work. So if then you have an environment that is toxic, not only does it affect, how you perform your work in that environment, but also it spills over into, your out of work life. So it will then have negative impact on your family and how you then carry yourself outside of the workplace as well.
Do bullied workers become bullying bosses?
We do know that obviously if you have been bullied, it really affects you quite badly, not only physically but also psychologically and emotionally. The research has not really been that strong in showing the evidence that if you have once been bullied, that you will actually then carry it through. But we have seen that in some instances where those individuals will then, because it affects your self-esteem, it affects obviously how you feel about yourself. You would then want to then reaffirm yourself if you then get promoted into that position of being a supervisor or manager, that you then feel that the only way to enforce and reaffirm yourself is to then carry over and also be a bully, so to speak, to try and then reaffirm yourself.
How does this affect the home life? How does it affect you at home as a professional when you are bullied?
Oftentimes you hear, talks about, work-life balance. That is very, very important. But we know that obviously if you are being bullied at work, that without a doubt, psychologically and emotionally, you are going to have that distress, which, as I indicated, will then spill over into your family. You'll have symptoms, of mental health-related type symptoms that will manifest. You'll feel when you are at home that, you might not want to engage with your family members. You feel depressed, you feel hopeless, you might be tearful for no apparent reason. But also, some individuals act out. So they may be more aggressive, irritable, when they are at home because they are trying to cope with this toxic environment that they find themselves in at work. But also, you may also tend to substances to try and self-medicate, to try and make the problem, sort of go away and seem better. So that obviously can also have a negative impact on your family because we know that some individuals, obviously, when they utilize substances, whether it's alcohol or recreational drugs, can lead to risky behaviors, but also can lead to aggressive, type of behaviors as well.
Talk to me about stress quickly. Stress. And tell me about how bullying and this kind of social ills in the workplace, how does it affect stress?
Look, if you are being bullied and you are constantly in that toxic environment at work, it will then lead you to developing the stress. Because remember, you are impacted in such a way that you feel that, it arouses a huge amount of anxiety. When you think about going to work, you start feeling anxious, and that then tells us that you then develop the stress because what is stress? Is when your body physiologically starts to release what we call stress hormones. So then the stress will manifest. And of course, if that stress is not being taken care of, is not being treated, it will then escalate into a much more severe type of a mental disorder. It could be a type of, anxiety disorder or even depression. And of course, we know that unfortunately, the severe consequence of untreated and unmanaged mental health disorders is unfortunately suicide. We have seen as well in South Africa, you know, in the workplaces where individuals have gone to work, taken a gun, turned the gun on on their colleagues before they obviously, you know, take away their lives. So those are just some of the unfortunate and severe consequences.
We have a question from one of our viewers that's on screen. We put it up, Mbuntu, who says, and he directed it at Yanni de Villiers, but she's left now, so you're going to have to answer this one.
I'll try, yeah.
Why is toxic leadership such a core concept in your approach to remedy bullying?
Toxic leadership.
Yes.
Of course. I mean, you know, what we often talk about cultures in, you know, in companies or in work environments. Who is responsible for that culture? Oftentimes, is the people that are in leadership positions. So it's important that we educate our managers, our senior executives, you know, to ensure that their workspaces or their organizations do not condone the culture of bullying, do not condone you know, harassment, any form of harassment in the workplace. I think it's important as well for people to understand that, you know, this really amounts to violation, you know, of human rights. You know, when you are then, you know, put or exposed to such, you know, harassment in the workplace.
I want to conclude by asking you about the underreporting of these in the workplace in general. Why is it underreported so badly in South Africa? But it's not just a South African problem, is it?
Indeed. I mean, some of the statistics in the US show that over about 4 million, you know, Americans do report being bullied in the workplace, you know, in any given time a year, for example. And of course, the UK, as we know, at some point has passed the anti-bullying legislation, you know, but we know that for fear of being further victimized in the workplace, oftentimes, you know, staff members or employees do not speak up. You know, they feel that if they do, they will be discriminated. They might not get that raise that they require. They might not get that promotion. You know, so really it is the fear that, but also for oftentimes individuals feel completely defeated that they can't go against this huge force, which is then this culture within the organization that exists. You know, so people then feel completely helpless and hopeless, and feel that, you know what, they are not able to speak up or even lodge a grievance because the company itself is not welcoming of such.
Well, thank you very much for joining us in Kini today. We've run out of time. We've got to go elsewhere. Very interesting. I love what you are telling us. Nkini Pasha is a clinical psychologist and also a board member at the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. And that said, 1 in 3 South Africans are battling with some form of mental illness, and it's untreated at the moment. So go to SADC's website if you need any help. It's interesting. Anyhow, as we move on, the Communications Minister, Ayanda Dlolo, is holding a media briefing on different issues related to her department. Let's cross there live now.
For a permanent regulatory structure, also the amendments provide for the setting up of an appeal mechanism committee which will serve in resolving on any disputes that might arise. Upcoming events, President Jacob Zuma will deliver the opening address at the 2017 Tourism Indaba, which will be hosted at the Inkosi Albert Luthuli International Convention Center in Durban between the 16th and the 18th of May 2017. This is the international Indaba that will again showcase South Africa's products and services in the tourism and hospitality sector. Tourism Indaba will also promote and support the ongoing transformation and development of the South African tourism industry, notably the role entrepreneurs and small business owners play, but also opening up the sector for more entrance into the sector. In South Africa, more than 10 million international tourists arrived in 2016, 13% more than in 2015. This is well over the global average growth rate at 3% for the period. During this period of tourism Indaba, South Africa will benefit from the number of delegates that will descend on South Africa. The Minister of Energy, Mamuluku Kubai, will this month lead the Energy Month campaign under the theme Promoting Affordable and Sustainable Energy Mix in Support of Radical Socio-Economic Transformation. The campaign will educate, create awareness, and engage the public on energy efficiency, energy security, alternative energy matters, and how they are all central to household, commercial, and industrial consumption. The 2017 departmental budget votes in 2017 present an opportunity for the departments to present to Parliament and to the general public how they will be utilizing the 2017 budgets allocated to them. They will also use these submissions to also share with the public what their programs will entail for the current financial year. And Cabinet calls on all in the public to engage with these presentations as they are presented through the parliamentary processes. The Department of Water and Sanitation will host Sanitation Week between the 16th to the 22nd of May under the theme, Sanitation for Health and Dignity. Government is committed to bringing dignity to South Africans through the provision of sanitation services. The main focus during the week will be the Priority Bucket Eradication Program. This will see the handover of waterborne sanitation to communities in the Nketwana municipality in the Free State and the David Kraper local municipality in the Northern Cape as part of accelerating services to replace bucket toilets. You will also remember that these are the municipalities that have quite a sizable backlog in the eradication program. South Africa is celebrating the Africa Month under the theme Building a Better Africa and a Better World. A number of activities are taking place led by the Department of Arts and Culture, which are aimed at promoting African unity. The activities will culminate on the 25th of May 2017, where the President will host a luncheon at the Sifako Makgatho Presidential Guest House. Invited to the luncheon will be leaders of organizations of foreign national residents in South Africa, which the President had met during 2015. Cabinet welcomes the decision by President Zuma to extend the deployment of members of the South African National Defence Force in the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is in an effort to contribute to peace and stability in the African continent, and in particular the region, in line with our international obligations and our foreign policy of contributing to a better world and a better Africa. A total of 1,371 members of the SNDF are deployed in the DRC in support of the United Nations Stabilization Mission. Their deployment has been extended from the 1st of April 2017 to 31st of March 2018. Our deployments on the continent are in continued support of regional and continental processes to respond to and resolve crises, promote peace, security, strengthen regional integration, significantly increase intra-African trade, and champion sustainable development in Africa. Cabinet also congratulates all the recipients of the 2017 national orders in the year of O.R. Tambo. They have shown us the power of working towards a better South Africa and a better nation. We draw inspiration from their achievements and their dedication, passion, and willingness to advance humanity. For the Order of Ikamanga, in gold, there was one recipient. The Order of Ikamanga in silver, 7, and in bronze, 1. The Order of the Baobab in gold, 1, 2 for silver and 2 for bronze. The Order of Luthuli in silver, 29, 1 in bronze. The Order of Mapungupo in silver, 1, and the Order of the Companions of O.R. Tambo in gold, 1. The release of the 17th Commission for Employment Equity report by Minister of Labour, Mildred Oliphant, shows the stubbornly slow pace of transformation at various workplaces in the South African local labour market. The report demonstrates that we are still far from achieving a workforce that is truly representative of our nation. African people, women, and persons with disabilities remain severely underrepresented in all aspects of employment equity. I know that Minister Oliphant had addressed the media on this issue, and more information is available on their website on the disparities that we speak of. The report showed that white people occupied 68% of the country's top management positions in the public and private sectors, 6 times the group's economically active population. Africans made up only 14% of top management. Given the urgent need to transform the economy and ensure inclusive growth, this is simply not good enough. Cabinet welcomes the announcement by the Minister of Labour that her department is considering adopting harsher consequences for non-compliance. Cabinet joins President Jacob Zuma in congratulating Emmanuel Macron, President-elect of the Republic of France, following his victory on the 7th of May 2017. South Africa looks forward to working with the French government under the leadership of Mr. Macron to consolidate the already strong political, economic and trade ties between South Africa and France. Cabinet also congratulates the former mayor of Johannesburg and South Africa Local Government Association chairperson, Councillor Parkstow, on his appointment as co-chair of the United Nations High-Level Independent Panel to oversee the effectiveness of Habitat 3. The program was adopted by the UN to reinvigorate the global commitment to sustainable urbanization. The Department of Trade and Industry took home the Best Foreign Exhibitor Award at the 58th Zimbabwe International Trade Fair. This acknowledges the outstanding efforts by Team South Africa towards ensuring the country's commitment to building partnerships with Zimbabwe, that it has yielded the desired economic gains. Cabinet extended condolences to the government and the people of the Republic of Tanzania on the tragic bus accident that resulted in the death of 36 people, 33 of them children. On appointments, you should note that all appointments are subject to the verification of qualifications and the relevant security clearances. The board of the Independent Regulatory Board for Auditors, new people have been appointed, and there have been reappointments of people that have already been there. The first one is Ms. Amanda L. Mazibugo, it's a reappointment. Mr. Abel Dlamini, also a reappointment. Mr. Tiru Pillay, a reappointment. Mr. Ngabaneng T. Mashile, new. Ms. Zuzile Nzalaze, new. Mr. Mohamed I. Mutala, new. Mr. Madoda A. Petros, new. And Ms. Marty J. van Rensburg, also new. The reappointment of Mr. Cedric Monwabisi Masondo as Managing Director and Executive Director of Special Risk Insurance Association, which is also a state-owned company. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Minister. I think the Minister has indicated that she's only going to take one round. Can I take firstly some of the questions, because I'll take all of you at once, because I think the Minister is not going to have a second round. With your permission, can I start with the Pretoria? Pretoria?
Yes, there's a question.
Good morning, Minister. Anton Meyer from Pretoria. There's a lot of talk about judicial overreach, the doctrine of separation of powers. We've seen a lot of judgment recently by the courts against decisions taken by cabinet ministers. Are you as cabinet concerned about the relations between the two arms of state? I know President Jacob Zuma met with the Chief Justice in 2015 about the relations between the judiciary and the executive. Do you think it's time for a follow-up meeting? And then just on that matter, President Jacob Zuma applied for leave to appeal against the judgment last week that he should provide his reasons, the recorded reasons for his cabinet reshuffle to the DA. What's your view on his leave to appeal application, and then the cabinet's view on the DA's court application to have these record and reasons made available to them? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone still in Pretoria?
No, that's the last for this round.
Thank you. Let me start here with you.
Thank you, Olga. Minister Les from ENCA. Just firstly on the fee cabal, now that it's been signed by the President, what still needs to be consulted on by the Minister if it has now already been signed into law? And secondly, early in the week, the Minister says whether the term is radical economic transformation or whether it's inclusive growth, it still serves to seek the same end goal. What exactly is the term being used inside cabinet? Is it radical economic growth? Is it inclusive growth? Because according to the Minister, it may not mean much, but to people outside, especially investors, the term that is being used and the theorems around it, that is particularly important.
Thank you. And then yes.
Morning, Minister. Paul Vecchiota from Bloomberg. Just quickly, the ministerial team who's going to assist the Minister of Finance, please say who's on that team. When do you expect the ratings agencies to actually visit? And then the consequences for employment equity that Cabinet's considering. Could you give us an idea of what they're considering, what form they'll take? Is Cabinet looking at introducing a bill or regulations or an update to that?
Sorry, I was just writing your first question. What's the second one, sorry?
The second one, when do you expect the ratings agencies to visit?
That was the first one? Yeah.
Sorry, well, so who's part of the team? And then the second one is on the consequences for unemployment equity. What is Cabinet considering? Is it going to be in the form of a new bill? Will it include fines, jail sentences, that sort of thing? Can you give us detail?
Yes.
Thanks, Minister. Minister, just some figure again, please. It says here the consultation is ongoing and will be finalized soon. That's on page 4 of 10. And so as to ensure process of promulgation. So my colleague did ask about the consultations. Who is that with? Did Minister provide a timeline? Because again, I think that's important. If there's a sense that the regulations and things will be promulgated like before December, if there's a possible timeline for the implementation of FICA. And just on AXA, the appeal mechanism, is that for an appeal mechanism for you, the passenger, versus the airport, or is that more sort of like a more trading kind of thing? Let's say SAA versus BA or Kalula or something like that. A bit more that appeal mechanism what it seeks to accomplish.
Linda?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Minister. Linda Eames on Business Day. Just on the team that will be working on the credit rating agencies' visits, did Cabinet sort of formulate the message that it wants to convey in conjunction with the Finance Minister on what the message will be to the credit rating agencies? Thank you.
Thank you. I think the last two, it's you and then you. Okay, you are the last, and that's it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you can.
Thank you very much. Lukana Talato from the SABC. Ma'am, in the cabinet discussions you mentioned issues about discussions on how to reverse the downgrades. Could you elaborate a little bit more on just what some of those issues entail? Just give us a little bit more detail on what was discussed on how to actually reverse the downgrades. Thanks very much.
Jan Gerber, News 24. Minister, yesterday, just a question on your portfolio. Yesterday, in the Portfolio Committee on Communications, the chairperson of the Interim SABC board said that they forwarded a proposal on the funding for the SABC to you. Have you received the proposal yet, and can you divulge how much money the SABC won? Thanks.
You are the last one.
Thank you for the Business Day. Just wanted to find out, relating to Airports Company SA, if there's been any indication of the newly appointed Minister of Transport's engagements with AXA, pertaining particularly to the board and the impasse that the previous minister had with the persons on the board. And secondly, relating to the Vuwani situation, the indications that have already been made that just because there has been an intervention, it's not to say that the decision to bring Vuwani into what's being called Collins Chabane local municipality is not going to be reversed. Taking that and citing another example of municipal adjustments where, and this is not to bring political party matters into the realm of government, but the ANC and the AIC having an agreement that Matakiele should return to KwaZulu-Natal. Not to say that the possibility of coalition agreements coming to an end would have anything to do with it, but that decision giving the impression to the AIC that that is going to happen as soon as the end of the year, given all of the adjustments that have to be made, changing the shape of 2 provinces, and of course, such a proposal having to come to Parliament. With that in mind, what is the actual reason for not giving or indulging the wishes of people in Vuwani pertaining to the state of the municipality that they're in? And in relation to Matatiele, how far has that process gone so far? Who has been consulted in terms of provincial government? And given the fact that opposition parties that have been asked have said that this is an agreement of expediency, what would you say to them? Because it would appear that if it makes its way to this house, they're going to try and oppose it with all they've got. Thank you.
That's all, Minister.
Thank you very much. I think I'll start with the Vuwani issues. There's been quite a few questions on Vuwani. I'm not sure what the details are with regards to the discussion between the AIC and the African National Congress. Maybe the Minister for Cocta would have that detail on the Matatiele issue. But I think the basic approach by government with the IMC that is in place is that we look at things in a holistic fashion. Decisions are taken, there's appeals processes that are in place according to legislation, and that's what we would want to respect. If you look at the work that we've done as a nation since 1994, we've tried to walk away from issues of old apartheid spatial frameworks, that's one, but also tried to be very careful in not fueling what would be seen as tribalism in our society, but also in terms of the decisions that we take, that we do not create communities that are based on tribe and to entrench that. We would like to see more inclusive communities. That is why we have what Minister Lindiwe Sisulu is dealing with in inclusive human settlement programs. Now, we have spoken to the people of Vuwani, there's been agreement, and we have not said to them that what it is that they wish for is going to happen. But we've put a contingency in plan to say services that are not delivered must be delivered by the district to all municipalities under its jurisdiction. There has been calls from the people of Malamulele who are also watching this process very, very closely. You must also understand that that in itself has a potential of taking a tribalistic tone. So we have a responsibility as government, but also leaders in society have a responsibility to ensure that we do not go back to Gazankulu and, what was the other one? Gazankulu and Lebowa. Yeah. I don't think that's what we would want to see as a government, but I don't also think South African society would want to see us going back to those demarcations that actually are demarcated along tribal or racial lines. On FICA, for every piece of legislation, it is always expected that there will be regulations to ensure the implementation or adherence to of that legislation. And I think this is what FICA seeks to address. I mean, the FICA regulations would seek to address. You must remember that we're also signatories to international and continental protocols on dealing with issues that FICA would also be dealing with. So those regulations, I am not sure, the question was asked, I'm not sure when the minister will finalize this. He did not give us a clear time frame, but he did say that consultation is underway, and the consultation obviously would be consultation with all stakeholders that would have to be part of the implementation or overseeing the implementation of FICA. That would be the JCPS cluster, that would be the economic cluster, and I think to some extent it would also be justice, well, justice as in the JCPS cluster. So those consultations should still continue. I'm not sure whether those consultations will also include Parliament on the development of the regulations. But ultimately, those regulations would have to be presented to Parliament, in my understanding. The ratings agencies, we were looking at, the communications was that they will be here between May and June. And I think the third one is going to be towards, I think, August or September. So those were the rough dates that we were looking at, or the rough estimate of timeframes that we're looking for them to be coming into the country. The minister has said to me that he is going to hold a press conference to properly give a feedback on the discussions he's had with the ratings agency during his visit to the United States, but also for those that he has met in South Africa, and also the misgivings of the ratings agencies. But he has tried his best, even at WEF, to allay the concerns and the fears that there is new policy that might be introduced because a new minister has been appointed. ANC policy is what guides our policy framework. And the ANC goes to conference every 5 years. None of us have the authority to change policy midstream unless there are serious problems that affect our people in the implementation of that policy. So Minister Malusi Gigaba has no intention to change anything that was implemented by his predecessor in terms of policy. So we have tried our best during WEF and in the meetings that he's had to ensure that those fears of policy changes are allayed. On the question that was asked as to whether the Cabinet did discuss the ruling and the judgments, yes, there was a discussion on that, but at the end of it, it was decided that this should be left to the presidency to deal with. As you see, we have not actually reported on it because it was left to the presidency because they still had to report, to respond to what was raised in the ruling. I think it was the Cape High Court or the Johannesburg High Court. But they had the presidency still had to report to that. So I was not at liberty to deal with the issues here, and this is why I did not raise it in this meeting. I would want to steer away from giving my personal view on the matter, as I have been asked what my view is on the leave to appeal. I would rather steer away from that because I am presenting before you what Cabinet had discussed and the decisions of Cabinet. And that decision was that we should leave it to the presidency to respond on the matter in the way that they feel they would be responding. Consequences for non-compliance on employment equity. What was presented to us was that the department would be looking at consequences for non-compliance because fines small fines have proved not to be effective. Companies would prefer to pay the fine, which is almost insignificant, rather than comply with legislation. So what it is that the Labour Ministry is looking at, I really do not know at this stage, but I hope that Minister will be able to take the nation into confidence on whatever decision would be taken in terms of the consequences for non-compliance. On credit ratings, how will we reverse the downgrade? There are many things that we need to take into account, including prudent fiscal discipline, not exceeding the ceiling that has been placed with regards to expenditure in the system, President also spoke about behavior and pronouncements that we make that are conflicting. But again, like I said, Minister Malusi Gigaba will also hold a press conference just to give you feedback on what was discussed, but also what he will expect us as cabinet ministers to do in supporting his work towards ensuring that we go back to a more positive credit rating. Have I received the funding request? I did receive it last night. When I came back from the sitting in Parliament, I did receive it in the office. Honorable Van Dam was being extremely mischievous towards me because at that point I really had not received it. But now I have received it. I've asked my financial team to sit with me to take me through it. I've asked them to also sit with Treasury so that we can review it, because I am not looking at a today or tomorrow solution. I'm looking at a lasting solution to the problems of financial stability of the Broadcasting Corporation. So I don't know what the amount is. Whatever amount is on the document, I wouldn't want to talk about it, and I wouldn't want to commit myself to that figure, because there are other things that when I was asking my advisor about the document, because he had gone through it, there are other things that are not covered there. We still have the digital migration program that we're implementing and rolling out. That is not covered in the request for financial funding. So I will be able to get back to the SABC and the Treasury around what it is that is there, but I still need to go through it and respond to the SABC. I think I have, the impasse with the Board of Transport. I really don't know whether the Minister is looking into that and what he has done, because he did not bring that to Parliament. On the AXA, the regulation, the regulator or the appeal mechanism is for the regulators, the SOC, and the industry players. So it's dispute mechanism, the appeal mechanisms that have been put in place to ensure that everybody understands what the rules of the game are with respect to that. I think I have covered everything.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Minister.
The Finance Minister will be consulting for the credit rating agencies. You mentioned a team of ministers.
Oh, I don't have that. I don't.
I think we've come. Thanks, Minister. Thank you very much, Minister. We've come to the end of the media briefing, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
I'm not happy at all. I'm not happy. Hi.
From Rapport newspaper.
From Rapport?
Yes, that's right. The request from the SABC. You probably know that, there's a lot of anxiety out there that people have for practice.
That was the Communication Minister, of course, addressing the media on various issues surrounding the Cabinet meeting and what came out of that. And, of course, a lot of issues, even the SABC being mentioned there as well. Well, let's take a look at where we are right now. It's just after 11 o'clock. Let's take a look at your news headlines. As we take a look at the headline, motorists have been warned to avoid certain routes as a result of the ongoing service delivery violent protests in the south of Johannesburg. Police Minister Fikile Mbalula sends a stern warning to criminals who he says are infiltrating protests. And the African National Congress's Northern Cape Conference kicks off today amid the urgent cabinet reshuffle by the Provincial Cape Premier Sylvia Lucas. So there you have it. Those are some of your headlines coming up. Now remember that we are asking you today the question that we posed to you. These protests, are they perhaps a political agenda behind the latest wave of protests that we've seen in Annandale, in El Dorado Park and surrounding areas that has spread now even to Tshwane? Let's take a look at some of your comments on the Twitter handle at SABC News as well as on the Facebook page. We'll come back to some of those in a short while. But we're also conducting a poll. We're asking you, have you been bullied in the workplace? It's 166 votes in, 54% are saying yes, 46% are saying no. Those are the poll figures, and of course we'll keep you updated on those. Let's now go live to the president who's in Tanzania today, and let's find out what's going on there. Let's go there live.
I would like now to inform you that today we will also witness the signing of 3 agreements before their speeches. And I want to use this opportunity to begin our program by signing the agreement where our principals will be witnessing the signing. I want to welcome the Ministers for Foreign Affairs, Dr. Augustine Mahiga, Minister for Foreign Affairs and East African Cooperation, and Maite Nkwame Mashabande, Minister for Foreign Affairs from South Africa, to the signing table, please. The ministers will sign the agreement of the meeting of the National Commission between South Africa and Tanzania. Your Excellencies and honorable leaders, this document aims at improving the agreements which were reached during the meeting where the ministers met prior to this report today. You are most welcome. Let's proceed to the signing. Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Your Excellencies, now I would like to welcome Professor Jumaine Magembe, Minister for Natural Resources and Tourism for the United Republic of Tanzania, and Honorable Edna Molewa, Minister for Environmental Affairs from the Republic of South Africa. Please, a round of applause for them. Your Excellencies, these ministers are signing a memorandum of agreement for cooperation in issues connected to biodiversity and between the government of the United Republic of Tanzania and the government of the Republic of South Africa. Your Excellencies, the Memorandum of Understanding aims at improving cooperation in the sector of wildlife and conservation. Thank you. Let's give them once again a round of applause. Your Excellencies, I would like to invite Honorable Engineer Edwin Ngonyani, Deputy Minister for Construction, Transportation, Communication from the United Republic of Tanzania, and Honorable Okachani Maswanganyi, Minister for Transportation from South Africa. Your Excellency, these ministers are signing a memorandum of understanding for cooperation in the transportation sector between the government of the United Republic of Tanzania and the government of the Republic of South Africa. Thank you. This agreement is intended to improve cooperation in transportation matters. Thank you. Once again, a round of applause for them. Your Excellencies, we have completed the signing of the agreements, or the 3 agreements. What's next in our program is to receive, to listen to the speeches from the principals who have a discussion since this morning when they met for this official state visit. And I'll have the honor to welcome, first of all, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Dr. John Pombe Magufuli, to pronounce his address to speak to the people of Tanzania and South Africa who are following this program through the press. And you are most welcome, Mr. President. Your Excellency Jacob Zuma, President of the Republic of South Africa, honorable ministers from South Africa, and ministers from Tanzania, honorable ambassadors, permanent secretaries here present, ladies and gentlemen, and dear media people. First and foremost, I would like to take this occasion to express my gratitude to His Excellency Mr. Jacob Zuma, President of South Africa, our brother, our beloved brother, Jacob Zuma, for accepting to come and visit us in Tanzania. South Africa is a brother country. They are our brothers and sisters. They are our friends indeed. Fortunately, when I was trying to read the history of His Excellency Jacob, when I was born, when he was aged 17 years at that time. Fortunately, His Excellency is a good revolutionary because in the sufferings that he has gone through. He was also paid, actually. In South Africa, and I said, no, that's minor. The things you hear about South Africa, just minor. So I want to welcome very warmly his delegation to come to Tanzania.
Well, that's the president in Tanzania with 6 ministers visiting the country, their official visit. But unfortunately, the sound quality as well as the pictures coming through, we do apologize for that. It's not that well. But we'll keep you updated as the story unfolds. We do have Mzwandile Mbeje. He's also with the president there, so maybe he'll give us an update a little bit later. But let's now move on to other stories making news here in South Africa. In fact, before we do that, let's just take a break and we'll be right back.
Rights and recourse tackles constitutional issues.
When South Africa became a constitutional democracy, we had a fairly sound legal system in place requiring the Constitution to guide the direction in which it must go and the way in which it must be refashioned.
The Justice Ministry, the custodian of human rights.
We actually have a plan to come up with a comprehensive review of our human rights instruments.
Advocates dealing with evidence.
Sometimes you have to use a crook to catch a crook. So we expected that their credibility would really be taken to task. You try and consult your witnesses and prepare them as best as you can.
Hashtag Rights with Dumila Matez on legal issues every Sunday at 2 o'clock Central African Time.
Of course, our focus today was in the workplace, abuse within the workplace, and of course harassment. And we're asking you that question on the poll. And let's see where you are with that poll if you're participating there. So far, have you been bullied in the workplace? 166 votes in, 54% of you in South Africa and the continent of Africa are saying yes, I've been bullied. 46% are saying no. But you're also tweeting us on these matters. Let's take a look. Yanni de Villiers, remember her? We had her earlier in the show, and she says, we are all accountable and we have a duty to help each other. Duty is sacred, especially to help those most vulnerable. And she representing, of course, the solidarity, the HR perspective there. Freddie Whitehorn says, I've been affected by the employer's madness. That's why I work for myself. It's a big struggle, but way better than the passive aggression that you find within the workplace, says Freddie Whitehorn. Sipom Tembo says, no, I've never been bullied. Those who like bullying are those who were taught on how to respect others. Respect, 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 says Sipo. Of course, remember the song, Respect Yourself. Yes, these are some of your comments. Please keep them coming, and we'll read them as we continue. Let's now see if we can get a better connection to the president and the 6 ministers in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam. Let's go there live.
It created employment to more than 20,916. In general, these statistics are very comforting or encouraging. But we have agreed to further reinforce our cooperation so that we can raise the business or trade between us, especially between, we still have a lot of opportunities for that. And one of the things that we have agreed upon include the our two countries should remove trade barriers which are still presenting an obstacle to business between our two nations. Another issue that we agreed upon is to develop the industrial sector. This area is very important for development of any country. As you understand, South Africa has made important strides in industrial development. And we have informed His Excellency Jacob Zuma about our intention to become a mid-economy industry based on industries by 2025. Therefore, we have agreed to cooperate, especially through the strategy for development of industries, which is in the SADC region. But I have also invited investors from South Africa to come and build industries here to process agricultural products, livestock, fish, forestry, and also in the sector of construction and also the processing of minerals, which I trust our colleagues have more expertise and they can support us in improving enriching our industrialized economy. During the meeting also, I thanked His Excellency for his decision to bring business people in his delegation who are now meeting with their Tanzanian counterparts at Mwalimu Nyerere Convention Center. And the major purpose is to develop investment between our two nations. Another issue is on transport infrastructure and energy infrastructure. As you may well know, these are important infrastructures in the building industries, but also in enhancing cooperation between nations. So, as such, we have agreed to cooperate in implementing different projects on infrastructure in the SADC region. But also, in that connection, I have informed His Excellency about the different projects for transport infrastructure and electricity, which are different levels of implementation in the country, including the construction of the standard gauge railway, which has a total of 1,200 kilometers, and electric projects on coal in Kiwira and Mchuchuma. And I have invited investors from South Africa to come and invest in those areas. I have also requested His Excellency, whose country is a member of the BRICS region, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, to come to help us to get a soft loan through the Development Bank of BRICS, especially for the implementation of our standard gauge project. The project has been divided into 5 portions. The first portion is 300, which is being constructed through our own money. I have requested His Excellency, and especially because he's one of is a member of BRICS who are rich, and it is the only country in Africa to see into how they can support us to get a soft loan or a concessional loan. I have told him that by requesting him, because it is an evident fact that Tanzania, we have done a lot in liberating many African countries. We have sacrificed a lot to that effect. And there were areas which were not developed because we left those areas, especially the southern part of Tanzania, we left it for the liberation fighters. We did that with a spirit of love. And that's why I was requesting, through these people whom we assisted, they can partially reciprocate that. And in this connection, because His Excellency Zuma is a member state of BRICS, the rich countries. These are rich countries. And he loves our country, Tanzania, and we love South Africa. We love South Africans because they have been the forefront in cementing our good ties, which are long-standing. I said just his single word, if he speaks to the members of the BRICS, just a single word, they will just give us a loan for standard gauge rail project. Just a word from the president. And he has indicated a good intention to do that, and taking into consideration especially that this rail, we are building it up to Morogoro, but we haven't reached Congo, where there were freedom fighters from South Africa. They were at Congo. They would like also, when they come from South Africa, they could be coming by train up to Congo. And as far as Dodoma, the new capital of our country, going through the areas where they used for freedom fighting to liberate South Africa. I think this has touched His Excellency in a special way, and I think he will just do all this just as a Tanzanian, actually, as a Tanzanian, because he will also use that railway one day. But also, we have discussed the issues connected to tourism. We have agreed to further improve our cooperation between us in tourism, especially by increasing these tourist trains to publish, to advertise our attractions together and to exchange experiences and expertise, especially in service provision to tourists. And that's why you have seen that there was an agreement signed here, but also I have welcomed, invited investors from South Africa to come and invest, especially in the construction of hotels and tourism development in the beaches in Tanzania mainland and Zanzibar. Considering that Tanzania will have a coastline, a long cut, more than 1,420, and we have a large water area, even in Zanzibar. So we welcome our friends to come so that we can cooperate in investing in those areas. But also, we have been comforted by the tourists who came from South Africa to come to Dar es Salaam 2 or 3 weeks ago by train. They came by train. We requested him that can these trips be even more frequent, probably every week. This could help to promote tourism. But also in other sectors, we have agreed also on minerals, actually, mining sector. We have agreed to cooperate in this area, especially in exchanging experiences and expertise in managing the sector. I have also invited investors from South Africa to come and establish industries to process and to add value to our minerals in the country, instead of exporting raw minerals without any further processing, without adding value. I have also told him that you have many minerals: tanzanite, gold, diamond, graphite, nickel. But we also have gas, methane gas, ethane, propane, helium, and other types of gases. So in this kind of cooperation, it can help the mining sector to contribute full to the development of our nation. Instead of exporting raw minerals, and we get very little out of that, instead of adding value to those minerals. We have also discussed on the issue of health care. We understand that South Africa has made significant strides in this area. But I have told His Excellency of the effort that you are taking as a government, especially in treating heart problems and kidney problems. So have used our meeting to request the government of South Africa to give us opportunities for training opportunities, not to develop the capacity of our experts. In that connection also, we have invited investors from South Africa to come and invest in the construction of pharmaceutical industries. Another issue that we discussed is in education, science, and technology. We have agreed that our research institutes, especially which work on science and technology, to establish cooperation. We have also encouraged our universities to have exchange programs and training programs to exchange experiences and expertises. I have also welcomed South Africa to come and take Swahili teachers from Tanzania. And we said we will send Swahili teachers to go and teach in South African universities and schools anytime. We are ready anytime. And we have agreed on that, and he's ready. On defense and security, we have agreed that our organs should cooperate in facing different challenges related to security and defense, including human trafficking, illicit drug trafficking, terrorism, piracy, etc. As you know, that there is no country that can face these challenges single-handedly. So we have agreed that we will cooperate in those areas. Apart from these issues, we have also exchanged ideas on other issues of national or international importance. We have reminded ourselves on the good cooperation between our sister parties, ANC and CCM, that these are the oldest parties in Africa. We have agreed that we should further strengthen our cooperation at international area, especially through SADC, African Union, and United Nations, and other international organizations, where we are both member countries. We have also agreed to cooperate with other countries in implementing the program, programs and projects which are in those organizations, especially the SADC strategy on industrial development and the Agenda 2063 of the African Union. Also have agreed to continue to cooperate in resolving conflicts, especially in DRC and Lesotho. I have thanked His Excellency for supporting Stagomena Taxi, who is a Tanzanian, who was vying for the position of Executive Secretary for SADC. We thank them for supporting us, but also because His Excellency Zuma is expected to take the chairmanship of SADC in August this year. He will be our new chair, and I have assured him that we will support him to take that chair, and also will cooperate with him, fully cooperate during his tenure as a chair of SADC. In our meeting in general, we have agreed that the implementation of must be monitored correctly. We have first agreed that henceforth all the sessions of the Commission will be conducted as decided. We don't want to go 6 years without any meetings. We don't want to repeat that mistake, because the first meeting was supposed to be convened in 2011. It wasn't done. It has been done this year, 2017. We are late. Better late than never, but we should not be late anymore. We have also agreed to ensure that all the decisions reached in this meeting and other decisions that you will agree in the future days must be implemented. And to make sure that this is done, we have agreed that we must have a monitoring mechanism, and also to prepare a matrix which indicates the agreements reached, what's supposed to be done, and who is supposed to do, and the timeline, and what will be the results. I'm sure By so doing, this will facilitate the monitoring of the implementation of our resolutions, and also to understand the obstacles to that process. And if there is somebody who is delaying us, it will be easy for us to identify that person. Of course, we won't fire him. I would like to stop here, but before I leave, I would like to say that this has been a very successful visit. The holding of the Binational Commission and the Business Forum, there's no doubt this will further strengthen our ties and cooperation between Tanzania and South Africa. So I'm very grateful, Mr. President, my brother, for coming to Tanzania and for this first state visit with all these ministers and different actors from your government and the business people. I'm very grateful, Mr. President. You have indicated a very good sign. You have given us the honor to see that South Africa, they are close to us. They are our brothers and sisters. And you are indeed our brothers and sisters, and will continue to be so. And Tanzania and the government of Tanzania in general will continue to respect and to honor the good cooperation between Tanzania and South Africa. And that's why even our national anthems are almost similar. It is because of the close ties between us. And when you are telling me that, even the name of Kilimanjaro, it's possible that it comes from South Africa, because you call it Kingwanjaro. So it's possible that the Ngoni took it from, we have the Ngoni here, the Ngoni people here. So I want to assure you, Mr. President, that we are with South Africa. Let's work together for the benefits of Tanzanians and South Africans. God bless South Africa. God bless Tanzania. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you, Your Excellency Dr. John Pombe Magufuli, President of Tanzania. Now I have the honor to welcome the President of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, for his remarks. You are most welcome, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Director of the Program. Your Excellency President Magufuli, honorable ministers from both countries and government officials, thank you for inviting me to visit this historic and beautiful country, Tanzania, a country we hold in very high regard because of its sterling contribution to the liberation of many countries in our continent, including our own. Allow me, Your Excellency, to begin by extending our condolences once again on the tragic death of school children in a bus crash in Arusha. We join the Tanzanian people in mourning this untimely and painful loss of our children. Your Excellency, this is an important visit for South Africa, given that this year we celebrate the legacy of President Oliver Reginald Tambo Tanzania played a central role in his life and that of the ANC. The bonds of freedom, of friendship and comradeship were forged when ANC leadership, comrades Oliver Tambo, Nelson Mandela and Joe Matthews met in 1962 here in Dar es Salaam to discuss support to the ANC, including the armed struggle at the time. Tanzania became our wonderful and hospitable home for many decades thereafter, as we fought an evil apartheid regime that perpetuated crimes against humanity. Importantly, many decisive moments in our country and key decisions which changed the course of the ANC, our governing party, and our history for the better were taken here in Tanzania. This makes this country very important indeed in the history of our own country. Your Excellency, I fully concur with you on the outcome of our discussions. We reviewed our bilateral relations, which are historical and fraternal in nature. We have noted with satisfaction the growing bilateral cooperation between our two countries, particularly in defense and security, science and technology, arts and culture, environmental affairs, trade and investment, transport and energy, to mention but a few. We have agreed to pay our particular focus on economic cooperation by encouraging private sector investments, infrastructure development, agro-processing, beneficiation, and joint venture projects. Later this afternoon, we shall address the business forum and urge our business people from both countries to take advantage of the strong historical relations and explore business opportunities. We have used the occasion of this state visit to inaugurate the binational commission between our two countries at a head of state and government level, so that we can both personally supervise the growth of these relations. The BNC will provide the required impetus to our relations by expanding the areas of cooperation to include the political, economic, security, and cultural fields. Added to this, we have directed our ministers and officials to finalize all outstanding agreements and memoranda of understanding. Key in this regard is the need to implement all existing agreements. We are happy with the signing of the agreements and the memoranda of understanding today that will take place on transport and the environmental affairs areas. We are also happy with the report of the ministers, which is comprehensive and time-bound. We appreciate more the decision to hold regular consultations, including annual mid-term review meetings. These will go a long way to forging a closer cooperation between our sister countries. We have also correctly agreed to encourage people-to-people relations. In this regard, we noted with satisfaction the current efforts in the implementation of the Arts and Culture Agreement, particularly the African Liberation Route Program, which is aimed at documenting the independence and struggle of the liberation movement. Tanzania, under the leadership of our leader, Mwalimu Nyerere, played a key role in the establishment and running of the Organization of African Unity Liberation Committee, and is indeed the home of our liberation history in Southern Africa. South Africa was honored to bestow one of our highest honors, the Order of the Companions of O.R. Tambo, on the late General Mbita recently, a great Tanzanian who was a long-serving and dedicated Secretary General of OAU Liberation Committee. Your Excellency, we also exchanged views on the political and security developments in the region and the continent. Tanzania continues to fight for peace in Africa, continuing her earlier contribution to decolonization and the ending of apartheid colonialism in South Africa. We share the concern over the continued political and security challenges in some of our sister countries on the continent. We are happy to work with you as the biggest troop contributors to the UN force in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We have agreed to continue to work together within our regional bodies and the AU to resolve the ongoing peace and security crisis. We also strongly condemn, in the strongest possible terms, all forms of extremism and terrorism wherever they occur. The successful implementation of Agenda 2063 will remain a dream if we do not resolve the security challenges facing. Your Excellency, indeed, it has been a good experience to meet with you and have time to discuss issues that need our attention, but also to remind us where we come from in our relations and what Tanzania has done to its brothers and sisters, particularly in the South. We have heard that benefit. We have areas in this country that we'll never forget. Mazimbu in Morogoro, as well as Dakawa. Yesterday when I arrived, I was being introduced to the officials, party cadres and leaders, and one of them says he comes from Kinandoni. I said, oh, you prick my memory. So to be here, it is absolutely wonderful. And I always try to think of my little Swahili, which is not there at all. But I love some of the words, ndugu, ndugu zetu. Your Excellency, let me thank you again for the successful deliberations and for the invitation and the hospitality extended to me and my delegation in our second home. I would like to invite you to South Africa to pay a state visit so that we continue our conversation and we deepen our relations. Asante sana.
Thank you. Thank you.
President Jacob Zuma says that the country's security agency